observe the outside through cameras. Even without visual access, Yuriko, with her psychic detection ability, could sense what had appeared on the roof, a bat-like creature. Subai was taken aback. A bat person? Could it be the superhero Batman? Then, thump, thump, thump. The bat person above began pounding on the roof, attempting to tear it open. How rude. Driver, permission to open fire. Understood, Commander. With a roar, the vehicle's roof-mounted weapon gathered energy and unleashed a powerful energy wave. The point-blank shot instantly sent Zhao Haoyan's team member flying dozens of meters away. Subai and his two companions stepped out of the vehicle. Ahead, a large crater had formed on the ground, and a man in a black tuxedo slowly rose to his feet. A basketball-sized hole, blasted by the hyena assault vehicle, gaped in his chest. To think there are humans here. The great emperor of our race never informed us of this. The man's wound healed at an astonishing rate. In less than 10 seconds, the gaping injury had completely vanished. I will kill you and drink your blood. A sudden gust of wind swept in. Bang! Tanya fired her gun, hitting the man squarely in the forehead. His head snapped back slightly, and the finger-sized hole in his skull healed instantly. Bang! 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 Tanya continued to fire, and even Subai pulled out his Browning to shoot. After countless rounds of enhancement, these three guns were far beyond the power of ordinary firearms. The man before them was instantly turned into a sieve, his head reduced to a mushy mess. Reviving him was practically impossible. However, even so, the commander said, "Let me handle this." Yuriko used her superpower to lift the man's corpse into the air. The immense pressure brought by her ability began to compress him. The sound of cracking bones echoed as they folded repeatedly, until he was ultimately compressed to the size of a basketball. Finally, with a loud bang, he exploded into a shower of blood and flesh. It's strange, Subai thought, that such a race exists in the outer realm. The gunfire in the distance quickly reached Zhao Haoyan's ears. It was all too familiar. The last time he had been shot and had his limbs broken. It was the same thunderous sound from Subai's handgun. Phantom pain surged through his body, but before Zhao Haoyan could recover from it, Subai's vehicle had already stopped 100 meters ahead. He got out, and, upon seeing each other, both were momentarily stunned. Zhao Haoyan. Subai? They exclaimed in unison. Is it really you? Zhao Haoyan's companion looked puzzled, and Captain Chu Xian leaned in to ask, Your Majesty, is this someone you know? Subai couldn't help but chuckle. You're quite the cockroach, aren't you? Can't be killed. As a citizen of the Dragon Kingdom, calling yourself an emperor is a bit much. Zhao Haoyan frowned deeply, anger flaring in his eyes. No matter if you are truly you or not, Subai, I will kill you. As for being called an emperor, I, Zhao Haoyan, have every right to that title. That so-called emperor of those little days can't compare to me. I am the emperor of all realms. A burst of wild laughter followed, saliva almost stretching from his mouth. Surprised? I'm alive again. Do you know why? Subai was somewhat at a loss, unsure of what had happened. This guy had been eliminated by him last time, and he had witnessed Zhao Haoyan being reduced to dust. Even if a celestial being came, they wouldn't be able to save him. Captain Chu Xian, tell this trash why I have come back to life, and in an even stronger form. As a reincarnator who had survived countless times in the horror cinema, Captain Chu Xian possessed an exceptionally intelligent mind. Countless times, he survived in horror films by relying on his wits. After Zhao Haoyan acquired the cinema, he voluntarily became Zhao Haoyan's subordinate. Chu Xian gently pushed his glasses. Because I, the Emperor, Zhao Haoyan, am the protagonist. He continued to explain. Every time in danger, he could reverse the situation and escape death. As a reincarnator, this phenomenon is referred to as the protagonist's luck. Zhao Haoyan, the Emperor. He is the child of destiny. Zhao Haoyan clapped. Indeed, he is the child of destiny. Otherwise, how could he have died so many times under Subai's hands and still managed to survive smoothly, becoming stronger each time? Chapter 223. Your rules may be numerous, but my troop types are even more diverse. Child of destiny. Protagonist aura? Have you read too many web novels, glasses guy? Subai said this, but he somewhat agreed with the other party's statement. This Zhao Haoyan was like a piece of chewed black gum. He was the unfortunate one who stepped on it. No matter how hard he scraped, it wouldn't come off clean. Got it. So, I am an invincible existence. Zhao Haoyan stretched out his hands, his expression relaxed, as if his heart had broadened a bit. But Subai didn't care at all. So what? I can kill you once, and I can kill you countless times. You can only reincarnate in this endless pain. Isn't that enjoyable? You bastard. Zhao Haoyan's team members immediately prepared for battle. Zhao Haoyan waved his hand. You don't need to take action. Take out your recording tools and document how I am going to completely kill this Subai, even crushing his soul. Subai didn't give Zhao Haoyan a chance to waste words. He raised his Browning and fired at the center of Zhao Haoyan's forehead. Currently, Subai's personal attributes made a single shot from the Browning powerful enough to produce the effect of a reinforced cannon. Kaka. Huh. Zhao Haoyan laughed. Can't you shoot bullets anymore? His face was filled with mockery. Let me tell you. Zhao Haoyan had 3 cards in his hand and threw one out just as Su Bai pulled the trigger. That was a terrifying rule. No open flames, Even if you summon your army now, they also can't fire shells. How about that? Su Bai was surprised. It seemed that this Zhao Haoyan indeed had some skills this time. However, Su Bai wasn't concerned. He summoned Frostmourne, which instantly appeared in front of Zhao Haoyan. He swung Frostmourne down toward Zhao Haoyan's head with immense pressure, as if to split heaven and earth, the momentum overwhelming and the power astonishing. Ding! Zhao Haoyan did not dare to be the slightest bit careless. He summoned his weapon, the Shiner's Blade, with all his might. This is a battle blade filled with dark power, a treasure left behind by the powerful demon from another realm. He used the blade to block an attack, but still felt his arm go numb and his palm split. Zhao Haoyan was taken aback, deeply shocked. He never expected Su Bai's strength to rise once again. However, Su Bai did not give him a moment to breathe. He swung his sword back with lightning speed, making it impossible to evade. Instantly, a deep wound appeared on Zhao Haoyan's chest, exposing bone. Blood gushed out, splattering on the ground and forming vibrant flowers. A thin layer of frost quickly formed over the wound, emanating a chilling aura. This scene left Zhao Haoyan's team members in shock, standing dumbfounded as they forgot to move their filming equipment. In their minds, Zhao Haoyan was invincible. No matter how strong the terrifying monsters, ghosts, or demons were, he could easily handle them. The fact that he was injured by another man was simply unbelievable. Zhao Haoyan took 2 steps back, creating distance between them again. Damn it. Encountering Su Bai was too hasty. Using the previous rule meant he could not use his powerful sacrificial fire. Otherwise, he would have burned Su Bai to death long ago. However, despite being unprepared when leaving his castle, having only 3 rules, he believed that with these 3 rules, he wouldn't lose. Therefore, Zhao Haoyan played another rule card. Melee weapons cannot be used. Note, any melee weapon will be unusable. Su Bai was momentarily stunned. The Frostmourne in his hand suddenly felt as heavy as a ton. He couldn't lift it. Looking up at Zhao Haoyan, he also returned his weapon. Could it be that the card just played meant weapons couldn't be used? Su Bai then put Frostmourne back into his space. The demonic wings behind Zhao Haoyan unfurled instantly. Ha ha ha, now let us fight barehanded. Both sides reverted to the most primitive form of attack. This time, Zhao Haoyan was absolutely confident he would win. His attributes were far superior to Su Bai's, and he was sure he could beat him to death. Zhao Haoyan soared into the sky, his massive wings flapping in the air. Then he struck down towards Su Bai like a precision-guided missile, locking onto him tightly. The speed was so fast it exceeded the speed of sound. However, facing Zhao Haoyan's aggressive attack, Su Bai did not choose to confront him head-on. Instead, he took a step back, skillfully dodging the attack. At the same time, Su Bai quickly summoned several radiation engineers. With a sudden crash, Zhao Haoyan could not stop his charge in time and crashed directly into one of the radiation engineers. The impact was tremendous, instantly piercing through the engineer. Immediately after, Zhao Haoyan grabbed the pierced engineer and lifted him high. He strained with all his might, trying to tear the unfortunate engineer in half. However, at that moment, an unexpected incident occurred. The green radioactive liquid inside the engineer suddenly splashed out, hitting Zhao Haoyan squarely in the face. Next to die is you, Su Bai. Zhao Haoyan roared in anger. But before he could finish his sentence, a series of horrifying screams escaped his lips. The green radioactive liquid had a strong corrosive effect, rapidly eating away at Zhao Haoyan's face. In the blink of an eye, the skin began to melt away, exposing the underlying bone. Clearly, such injuries had made it nearly impossible for Zhao Haoyan to survive. Su Bai, you dare to betray me. Several other radiation engineers continuously unleashed death rays at him, hastening his demise. Although Su Bai was unsure if Zhao Haoyan could truly die this time, just watching him suffer was already satisfying. With a loud pop, Zhao Haoyan released his last temporary rule. Flying beings are immortal. Note, flying units never die. After this rule was activated, Zhao Haoyan, who was already on the verge of becoming a skeleton, suddenly restored to his former state. The green radiation pouring over him had no effect whatsoever. Su Bai, this time, I will kill you. Once again, Zhao Haoyan flapped his wings and charged forward. Su Bai, too quick to react, was caught off guard. With a loud crash, Yukiko stepped in front of Su Bai and absorbed Zhao Haoyan's attack. Her abdomen pierced through. Stay away from my master. Yukiko focused her powers, instantly channeling a tremendous force from the void, sending Zhao Haoyan flying several dozen meters away. Yukiko. Su Bai rushed to check on Yukiko's injuries. No wounds. Su Bai smiled instantly. It seemed Zhao Haoyan had played his last card. His rule had also been unraveled by Su Bai. Chapter 224. King of Rules? Sorry. You can't match my King of Firepower. Zhao Haoyan. Is your third rule that flying beings never die? From a distance, Zhao Haoyan climbed up from the ground, momentarily stunned. Before returning to normal, "You think too much," he said, his voice lacking strength. Subai immediately confirmed his guess. Meanwhile, Captain Chu Xian couldn't help but nod inwardly. This mysterious man was surprisingly clever. He considered himself the strongest mind among reincarnators, having deciphered the rules of horror films at the cost of countless lives. How could he have grasped the secrets of these rules so quickly? Subai? Who exactly is he, and what grudge does he have with Zhao Haoyan? Zhao Haoyan glanced at the double ponytail beauty beside Subai, and a wave of jealousy surged within him. Damn it, Subai has another new beauty by his side. This time, it's a girl in a sailor uniform. For heaven's sake, he has lost count of the new beauties appearing around Subai. From the first time he saw Su Xiaoya until now, Zhao Haoyan's anger has grown with each encounter, and his jealousy has intensified, especially after his body was fully restored. Except for his beloved Kuan, which couldn't be repaired. It was all that damned Gul'dan's fault. When trying to fix it, he treated it like a woman on her period. As a result, in this rebirth, his gender was still perceived as female. However, he had just taken a hit from Lilith and gauged her strength. He was confident he could bypass the sailor uniform girl and deal with Subai. Just as he was about to act, he saw the three of them getting into a car. The vehicle started up and actually floated into the air. What the hell? Isn't that car invincible now? He was ready to strike. Zhao Haoyan heard the sound of the wolf assault vehicle firing several beams of light at him. While it didn't hurt, it was clearly a provocation. The message was clear. Come at me, hit me, I'm right here taunting you. What are you going to do about it? Zhao Haoyan clenched his fists, his teeth grinding in frustration. Subai, just wait. In 20 minutes, I will bring down even more terrifying rules to punish you. You guys, hurry up and unleash your respective vengeful spirits to delay them. After saying that, he flapped his wings and quickly returned to his lair. Meanwhile, his team members each controlled their ghostly powers, unleashing vengeful spirits that surrounded Subai's wolf assault vehicle with invisible force. Although they couldn't inflict any harm, they clearly disrupted the vehicle's monitoring equipment. The scenes outside kept changing. One moment it was a sea of blood, the next a village of the dead, and then an ancient tomb. Subai could see these scenes as well, and so could Tanya. The driver was sweating profusely from fear. Calm down, as long as we are in the car. No matter how the outside changes, those illusions can't harm us at all, Subai said, urging the driver to regain composure. The fragrant hair of the double ponytail girl, Lilith, lightly brushed against Subai's nose, filling the air with the scent of lilies. Suddenly, the monitor in front of them displayed a much clearer image. Yuhiko took the initiative to speak. Master, the entities released by the opponent are launching a mental attack against you. Although the armored vehicle has blocked any physical attacks, since you cannot fly, you are still susceptible to their mental assault. Don't worry, I will handle them. Yuhiko floated down from the vehicle and looked at a few of Zhao Haoyan's team members with a cold expression. Even though the Emperor has not yet lifted the invincibility effect, it shouldn't be a problem for us to hold him off. That's right. After so many cycles of horror films, we are not to be underestimated. One of the team members held a talisman, and suddenly a deep well appeared in front of him, with a series of cackling sounds. A woman with disheveled hair crawled out, moving in an inverted position. Kaiko, get into her head, pollute her mind. Jason, Freddy, you too, as immortal beings. Go and completely restrain her. In an instant, dozens of entities that could only be found in horror films rushed towards them. However, to their surprise, Yuhiko raised one hand and softly chanted, Psycho Wave, unleash. A massive energy burst forth in a circular form, instantly dispersing the horror film entities. At the same time, the cruel side of Yuhiko, who had been living a mundane life, was revealed. Under the control of the Psycho Wave, in the next moment, two team members suddenly attacked, stabbing the other members in the waist. With swift movements, they delivered a series of stabs. Captain Chu Xian realized the problem at hand. This woman possessed even more powerful telekinetic abilities, and his small team's strength was lacking. Retreat. He pulled out a rule card that had been secretly distributed without Zhao Haoyan's knowledge. People wearing glasses run fast. Note: people wearing glasses run fast. You simply cannot catch up with them. Chu Xian swiftly disengaged from the battle, while the others faced dire consequences. Just as they had disarmed their companion, Yuhiko's formidable telekinetic power crushed them into pieces. Subai got out of the vehicle, also amazed. He hadn't expected that someone like Zhao Haoyan could have subordinates. He felt that this guy was also backed by another force. He was merely a clown on the stage. To understand the rule power that Zhao Haoyan possessed more thoroughly, Subai carefully examined the bodies. Inside these individuals, small blue spheres were glowing faintly. Can be spiritually refined into spheres. One-time use item. Contains terrifying supernatural power. Can be used for telekinesis. Enhancing personal abilities. A total of 4 small spheres were found among these corpses. The description is still quite abstract. Subai tried using one on Yuriko. A malevolent spirit quickly attached itself to Yuriko. Yuriko, strength, 1000, agility, 4000, defense, 2000, health, 3000, skills, willpower, levitation, psychic wave burst, true psychic wave burst, psychic wave manipulation, psychic wave shield, mind strike, malevolent spirit's grasp. Originally, Yuriko from the Rising Sun Empire already had 6 skills. Unexpectedly, after using the small spheres from these team members, an additional skill, malevolent spirit's grasp, was added. It's unclear how powerful it is. Thus, Subai used all the remaining spheres. Other types of spirits also attached themselves to Yuriko. Yuriko, show us your malevolent spirit's grasp. Chapter 225. Are they all treating the other as Subai? The strongest race in the universe versus the king of rules. Telekinesis conversion. A chilling aura immediately rose in the area ahead. With a loud bang, the mushroom trees and a large area collapsed and vanished, seemingly pulled into the underworld. Subai was secretly astonished. He didn't expect malevolent spirit's grasp to be so powerful, transcending space and time. The attack range completely surpassed that of the time-space soldiers. It seemed the cooldown period had also shortened a bit. However, Yuriko couldn't teleport instantly like the time-space soldiers. At that moment, a communication was sent from the floating island. A fleet of divine beings appeared at the teleportation gate, and they were pursuing. Upon hearing this news, Subai did not dare to delay. He immediately entered the wolf assault vehicle and returned to the floating island. Checking through the spy satellite, it was indeed their type of divine mothership. On the star map, this large group of motherships was flying towards the floating island. It seems the other side also has the ability to view the entire map like he does. On the other side, Zhao Haotian returned to his lair and took out dozens of rules, gritting his teeth. Subai? This time you're definitely dead. He stood before his army of 100,000 demon guards and took out a rule. Cancel all previous rules. Note, all previously released rules are void. Then, Zhao Haotian took out another rule. All demons can fly. Note, demon-type creatures will have the ability to fly. Usage. The previously limited jumping demon guards flapped their wings and surprisingly took to the air. Very good, continue. A rule called Sharp Blade was activated. Note, all blade-type weapons ignore any defense. Although Subai might also have melee units wielding blades, so what? There were still 100,000 demon guards on his side, and they had been enhanced. Their health had increased from 100,000 to 500,000. In a direct confrontation, how could he possibly compete against his own forces? Excellent. Demon guards, go chase Subai. Upon receiving the order, the 100,000 demon guards quickly scattered and flew off, searching the skies for Subai's whereabouts. On the Divine Faction's flagship, an elder reported, "We've detected over 1,000 airborne units ahead. After analysis, they are classified as carbon-based life forms, magical creatures. We should eliminate them first. They are likely the vanguard reconnaissance forces of the human Subai." Over 1,000 divine fighter jets took off. Like a swarm of killer bees, they targeted the airborne units ahead and began unleashing beams from their weapons. Meanwhile, Zhao Haotian sneered. "It seems you came prepared. Just as I thought. Unfortunately, under the rules, no matter how powerful your weapons and units are, they are nothing but waste. Demon guards, take down those flies flying around in the sky." Roaring, the airborne demon guards wielding flame blades quickly scattered and charged towards the divine aircraft. With astonishing speed and agility, the demon guards skillfully maneuvered through the gaps in the divine fighters' attacks. The flame blades easily sliced through the fighters' shields, leaving behind shocking scars. Some even engaged in close combat, creating dazzling sparks as their blades clashed against the metal hulls of the aircraft, each encounter causing the air to tremble slightly. With just one strike, the heavily armored divine fighters were instantly cut in half, disintegrating and exploding in midair before crashing to the ground. Zhao Haotian watched this scene with immense satisfaction, feeling that the suppressed emotions within him were finally being released. This time, he would thoroughly torment Subai. On Subai's side, the flying creatures had high attack power and were very agile. It was advised that the aircraft disperse, create some distance, and then launch a concentrated barrage, ensuring the enemy had nowhere to hide. The general of the Divine Knights reported the current situation to the Elder. The Elder was taken aback. During the last battle with Subai, although both sides had engaged in aerial combat and sustained damage, their high-tech warships had maintained a significant advantage with energy shields and super-strong alloy armor, capable of withstanding dozens of attacks from the enemy. As a result, this time, those magical creatures wielding primitive weapons managed to take them down in an instant. It seems a bit unscientific. However, the Elder did not think much of it. After all, the technology of the divine race is the most advanced in the entire universe. Just as you said, although the demonic guardians moved skillfully in the air, they were still slightly outmatched in speed by the divine race's advanced aircraft. After receiving the new orders, All the aircraft executed a sweeping turn forward, quickly creating a distance of over 1,000 meters from the demonic guardians and hovered in the distance. The divine aircraft, as the most cutting-edge combat machines in the universe, were equipped with high-energy beam weaponry. When the commander gave the order, countless beams of light erupted suddenly, slicing through the air like lightning. Each beam contained a terrifying high temperature capable of melting stars, striking directly at the demonic guardians. Upon impact, even the toughest of scales struggled to withstand the assault, instantly melting holes into them. Accompanied by piercing screams, the demonic guardians rolled in the air, trying to escape the deadly light. In an instant, over 1,000 of the 3,000 demonic guardians were eliminated. Originally filled with joy, Zhao Haoyan's expression turned blank upon witnessing this scene. All remaining demonic guardians, push forward. Zhao Haoyan waved his hand, and the demonic guardians, who were searching for Su Bai in other directions, quickly regrouped and surged towards the divine fleet. In the aerial combat, both sides refused to give in. The divine aircraft continuously fired beams from a distance, attempting to corner the demonic guardians, while the demonic guardians leveraged their close combat advantages, constantly seeking opportunities to deliver fatal strikes to their opponents. In the sky, beams and flames intertwined, creating a brutal scene. Explosions and screams echoed, with warriors from both sides falling, yet the will to fight grew ever stronger. Su Bai checked the footage from his spy satellite and was surprised to find that the divine race and Zhao Haoyan's forces were fighting each other. What kind of enmity do they have? After a moment's thought, Su Bai quickly realized what was happening. It was clear that both sides mistook each other for allies. Thinking of this, Su Bai couldn't help but chuckle, tears of laughter welling in his eyes. Wow, I didn't expect this kind of play. This is really interesting. Commander, we have reached the vicinity of the portal and can leave this place, reported Eva. Wait a moment. I want to leave a few scouts behind to enjoy this battle properly. With that, Su Bai left behind several wolf assault vehicles, embedding the undead stealth troops within them, and scattered them across the ground. Meanwhile, on Su Bai's side, Floating Island. The Portal Chapter 226 Dog Bites Dog. Su Bai held popcorn in one hand and a small cola in the other, smiling as the portal closed behind them. The connection between the two worlds was instantly severed, and everyone let out a sigh of relief, having narrowly escaped death. The Blade Queen approached, stating, Su Bai, I believe we should immediately retaliate against the Electronic Star. They dared to resist us. Although this suggestion was somewhat primitive, she continued. The beings on the Electronic Star were once like humans, they just perished long ago. Now, they merely have their past brain data uploaded to servers, becoming electronic life forms. They hardly count as living beings. It's akin to destroying a few cars or smashing some computers. There's no moral burden at all. Alright, but we need to keep their mechanical factories. My engineers still need to study them to replicate their technology, Su Bai replied, emphasizing his point. He decided to let the queen of the insectoids follow her instincts in pursuing her plans. Meanwhile, Su Bai adjusted the space's soft seating to a foldable sun chair and instructed the chef to prepare a few barrels of popcorn and cola. He sat back, munching on popcorn and sipping cola, enjoying the view of the shadows in another world, capturing the scenes of Zhao Haoyan and the divine beings. Who would ultimately win? Back on the battlefield, between the divine beings and Zhao Haoyan, the air battle gradually intensified over time. The divine fighters began employing more flexible tactics, utilizing their formation advantages for encirclement and flanking attacks. The demon sentinels, however, were not to be outdone, using the terrain and their teamwork to continuously weaken the divine fighters' offensive. Yet, the demon sentinels were ancient creatures with low intelligence, while the divine fighters boasted the most advanced AI in the universe. They could learn and analyze the attack patterns and methods of their enemies, allowing them to dodge and counterattack effectively. Initially, Zhao Haoyan's remaining forces charged in, instantly overwhelming the fighters on the battlefield. If it weren't for the divine fighters frequently launching from their carrier, barely protecting it from attacks, the divine beings would have already been defeated. But now, the AI had completely mastered the attack trajectories of the demon sentinels, enabling them to kill 6 or 7 sentinels for the loss of just one fighter. Zhao Haoyan could hardly believe the situation before him. 100,000 demon sentinels with 500,000 health each could not compete with Su Bai's carrier-like ships. As explosions echoed in the air, Zhao Haoyan's commanded forces suddenly lost 3,000 troops. Damn it, Su Bai. You bastard. Do not think that this will lead you to victory. Zhao Haoyan ruffled his messy hair, continuously searching through his rules. Finally, he found a trump card. Cannot fly. Note, when this rule is used, any flying object in the sky will fall. Su Bai? Die. On the divine race's mothership. They had already annihilated 70,000 enemy beings, and their side had gained a dominant advantage. According to AI calculations, in no more than 15 minutes, they would achieve a complete annihilation victory in this war. The commander of the Holy Knights reported the latest battle situation to the elders, who nodded in satisfaction. They then discussed how to occupy and dominate after completely eliminating Su Bai's forces upon returning to the Electronic Star. Your Excellency, the enemy has about 20,000 forces left and seems to be rapidly returning to the ground, reported one of the officers. Upon hearing this news, the Divine Race commander couldn't help but laugh. How foolish. Returning to the ground is just perfect. We can use our Divine Annihilation Cannon to blow those insects on the ground to smithereens. Yes, the Divine Race's Mothership Annihilation Cannon can unleash power similar to a wave cannon, but it incorporates the latest high technology. It only causes intense thermal reactions on the planet's surface, effectively melting everything without harming the planet's interior or affecting the geomagnetic environment. It is like a precise surgical strike. However, the cannon's energy had not yet gathered when the mothership suddenly shook. A feeling of falling surged through everyone. What is happening? The mothership is out of control and is plunging toward the ground. What? Boom, boom. The Divine Race's mothership in the sky was affected by Zhao Haoyan's rule, rapidly descending to the ground. Each falling ship had power comparable to an asteroid striking the Earth. The shockwaves repeatedly reshaped the surrounding environment. Large areas of giant mushroom forest were flattened by the impact, and peaks collapsed one after another. The entire mountainous terrain spanning thousands of miles was leveled to plains. Zhao Haoyan laughed heartily. Despite getting dirt in his mouth from the shockwaves, he didn't care at all, because he knew that Su Bai on the ship was doomed. Even if Su Bai wasn't killed in the falling ship, he would ensure that the remaining army would completely overwhelm Su Bai. Zhao Haoyan snapped his fingers, golden light shining in his chest. His legendary old partner, the two-headed ogre chieftain, reappeared. The two-headed lion demon chieftain, after repeated honing by Zhao Haoyan, had become far more powerful and was now comparable to Su Bai's Ghost King X. A single shockwave could deliver a strike powerful enough to rival a nuclear explosion. Come on, let me take a look. What do those giant airships wrecks look like? However, the scene after the smoke cleared left Zhao Haoyan disappointed. Because, although the aircraft carriers of the Divine Race were uncontrollably falling down, their control cores were functioning normally. Before landing, all the carriers activated their energy shields. After crashing down, they remained intact. Moreover, as the highest technological alliance in the universe, the Divine Race had long anticipated this situation. The entire interior of the carriers was filled with a life liquid, allowing all members of the Divine Race to exist in a liquid state. This way, even when encountering any powerful impact, they wouldn't be killed by the shock. However, the thousands of aircraft did not have such advanced technology and all crashed to the ground, turning into wreckage. The life liquid was expelled, and all members of the Divine Race regained their senses from their daze. The Elder of the Temple Knights was so furious that he broke the staff in his hand. Although I don't know what means Su Bai used, he must die. All ground forces of the Divine Race, mobilize. Eliminate Su Bai. Eliminate Su Bai. Zhao Haoyan also shouted this slogan. The remaining more than 10,000 demonic guards charged forward. They approached the Divine Race's carriers, swinging their flame blades to carve out wounds on them. Quickly, smoke began to rise from several spots, catching fire. However, it did not last long. One by one, Temple Knights armed with laser blades rushed out from the carriers. With a single strike, they instantly decapitated a demonic guard. These Temple Knights wore the highest technology armor of the Alliance, providing them with strong defense and agility. Their laser blades were indestructible. There's a saying in the universe. No race unit has ever challenged the Temple Knights of the Divine Race. In the midst of the battle, the powerful life of the demonic guards was instantly reduced to zero. However, the flame blades of the demonic guards ignored any defense. With a swift turn, one blade instantly cleaved a Temple Knight with a shield in half. It could be said that both sides could take each other out with a single strike. Whoever struck first would survive, and the other would perish. On the battlefield, warriors from both sides continued to fall, but more troops stepped forward to continue this endless battle. With only over 10,000 troops at his disposal, Zhao Haoyan was outnumbered and did not gain any advantage. Frantically, Zhao Haoyan scratched his head, jumped up and down, continuously issuing commands and micromanaging the situation. As a result, after a series of operations, the demon guards on my side ended up dying even more. This left Zhao Haoyan with no choice but to continue looking at the cards in his hand. Nightfalls, please close your eyes, was useless. Difficult Road was also useless. Do not drink water was equally ineffective. After some searching, Zhao Haoyan finally found a card that he felt could turn the situation around. That was the dumber, the stronger. Without a doubt, the hero by his side, the two-headed ogre chieftain Korgal, was of low intelligence. Apart from eating, mating, and killing, he could do nothing else. The fact that he could understand Zhao Haoyan's commands was already an extraordinary feat. Korgal, go smash those huge metals for me. Understood. The massive two-headed ogre chieftain charged into the ranks of the paladins like a fierce beast, his enormous body and powerful strength causing the ground to tremble. Korgal instantly broke through the paladin's tight formation, wielding a giant spiked club imbued with magical power. Each swing carried an unparalleled might, as if he intended to smash everything to pieces. With every swing, dozens of paladins were turned into mush, blood splattering everywhere, a horrific sight. However, this was just the most basic attack method of the two-headed ogre chieftain. Next, he demonstrated even greater power. Korgal unleashed a powerful shockwave. This shockwave resembled a terrifying storm, dense and powerful in energy. It rapidly created a deep chasm that stretched for over 100 kilometers, obliterating everything in its path. The paladins along this straight line were instantly reduced to dust, not even given a chance to resist. Their bodies were fragile before such overwhelming energy, turning to ashes. The shockwave did not stop. It continued to extend forward until it collided with a massive aircraft carrier of the divine race, finally coming to a halt. With a deafening explosion, the aircraft carrier erupted violently. A mushroom cloud soared into the sky, blotting out the sun. The front of the divine aircraft carrier was directly penetrated, triggering a series of chain explosions, filling the surrounding air with a scorching heat. Subai observed all of this in shock. Zhao Haoyan's hero had become so powerful, far beyond his expectations. Even the divine aircraft carrier was sunk by him. It was worth noting that when he had previously sent out a large army of Red Alert, along with the undead army, plus the insect race and human race to attack the divine aircraft carrier, they had not managed to bring it down. Thinking of this, Subai secretly felt fortunate. It was a good thing he had known in advance that Zhao Haoyan possessed the ability of rules, allowing him to counteract effectively. Unfortunately, the divine race did not have this kind of intelligence. The current situation is unbearable. It was thought that under the assault of the two-headed ogre chieftain, the divine fleet would be completely smashed to pieces. However, the opposite occurred. A massive energy began to coalesce in the center of the divine fleet. This energy continued to shrink and concentrate, which reminded Su Bai of his own superweapon, the hyperwave destruction device. It also concentrated energy through thought, then compressed it repeatedly, and finally collapsed to release it. Could it be that the divine beings knew they were doomed and were preparing to take Zhao Haoyan down with them? With this thought, Subai grabbed another handful of popcorn and said to the waitress nearby, "Get me some snacks, peanuts, roast chicken, braised goose, and a bottle of sweet potato liquor." The technology of humanity could easily produce the desired food. With molecular aggregation, those dishes were quickly served. Subai took a sip of the sweet potato liquor. It was still as strong as ever. He nibbled on some peanuts and quietly watched the divine self-destruction unfold. He saw that the remaining undamaged energy cores of the fleet had reached their limits. Then, the energy core of the first ship exploded, a dazzling light instantly tearing through the sky, like a falling star, filled with endless rage and defiance. Following that, the other ships responded with explosions in succession. In an instant, the entire ground seemed to ignite. A wave of intense energy surged from the fleet, sweeping surrounding dust and debris into the sky, forming enormous mushroom clouds. These explosions erupted like a chain reaction of fireworks, each bursting forth with brilliant light. A third of the territory shook and collapsed under the continuous sound of explosions. The earth torn apart into shocking wounds. The two-headed ogre, a seemingly invincible presence in Zhao Haoyan's hands, was also severely injured in this series of explosions. Its body swayed under the impact of the energy waves, ultimately collapsing amidst chaos and wails, becoming part of the void. As the aftershocks of the explosions gradually subsided, all that remained in the territory was silence and desolation. Refreshing, Subai downed an entire bottle of sweet potato liquor and burped. He truly had to thank Zhao Haoyan this time for helping him deal with such a troublesome opponent. Likewise, he estimated that under such fierce explosions, Zhao Haoyan would not survive either, having taken down so many ships of the divine beings. He believed that even the coalition would be shocked and would not rashly send another fleet to pursue him. However, even if they did send another fleet, so what? Su Bai's transdimensional teleportation system has been restored. Now he can quickly return to the distant star. By then, if the divine race wants to catch up, who knows how long it will take them to travel. At this moment, Hanli approached. "Commander, we have acquired the entire technological system, production lines, and scientific data here. We can return to the distant star now. This planet has no oxygen and is not suitable for human habitation." Subai issued the command and activated the transdimensional teleportation, setting the coordinates to return to the distant star. Once again, he stood on breathable ground and couldn't help but take a deep breath. Everything was over. The human race could continue to evolve using the technology of the electronic star's mechanical demon gods. As long as they didn't evolve into a dead end of physical weakness and mechanical ascension like those beings. He could also leave and return to the main god space. Chapter 228. Download Data Chapter, Moment of Uprising. The complete form of Red Alert 3 appears. Congratulations to the remaining team members for exceeding the mission requirements. Each person receives a bonus of 50,000 points. The captain receives 3 additional opportunities to gain orders. Han Li and Sato Takara breathed a sigh of relief. They were finally back. They thought this trip to the Electronic Star would be a straightforward battle, especially with not just 3 members of the demon team, but also the Blade Queen of the insect race and the highest commander of the human race. Unexpectedly, they encountered an even stronger overlord in the universe, the divine race. They almost faced disaster. The key point was that the main god only added a reward of 50,000 points. Although they had taken down many enemies, it still felt a bit stingy. Park Etian, the leader of the Killing Mat team, and Xiao Liang rushed over. One of them carried a basin of water. Another held a box of beer, and the last one had a towel. The 3 of them jostled to get in front of Subai. Before Subai could speak, they said, "Captain, you must be tired. We just prepared a basin of hot water for you to wash your feet and brought some beer to help you relax. I have a towel to wipe your sweat." Park Etian kicked the other 2 down to the ground. The 2 who fell didn't dare to complain and could only look at Park Etian like a wronged woman. Subai asked, "How long have you been back?" Logically, he had stayed almost a month after they left. During that time, they must have experienced at least one battlefield of 10,000 realms. But Park Etian replied, "Captain, we returned almost at the same time. It's only been about 3 minutes in between." So that's how it is, Subai realized. The flow of time in the 2 worlds is different. No wonder these 3 had prepared to welcome him right after he returned. Flattery seemed to lack sincerity. It turned out that time was limited, and Subai no longer struggled with this issue. He sent the 3 people away and began to study what Hao Ge said about issuing tasks to the main deity. "Main deity, tell me about the scalpel." The scalpel can only be used by the team leader, and the team leader's authority has not been used yet. You currently have 4 opportunities to use the scalpel. Rule details. The so-called scalpel allows free combination of your own units, meaning something like ABC. Would you like to proceed with the combination? Subai tapped his chin. It turns out what Hao Ge said was true. A combination? It seemed interesting. So, Subai decided to give it a try. "I want to combine." In the next second, a huge display screen appeared in his mind. In the combination area, a formula was presented. This meant that by placing his units in the first 2 question marks, he could perform a random fusion. Subai chose the Chronospatial Trooper for the first question mark and the Night Hawk transport plane for the second. He clicked confirm. A blue light flashed, and a new unit appeared. Chronospatial Trooper Night Hawk Freezing Helicopter. Wow. Subai was taken aback. It was actually the freezing helicopter from the Red Alert 3 expansion. This thing didn't seem very useful, especially since Subai already had Frostmourne, which could unleash skills to freeze everything. However, this helicopter had another use. It came with a shrinking ray that could compress objects. This ray was known as a strong homogeneous residual interaction neutron kinetic beam. It might not be useful now, but perhaps in the future, it could be a trump card. At the same time, a new icon for the freezing helicopter appeared in Subai's Red Alert system under the Allied faction, meaning he could produce it infinitely. It seemed quite interesting. Subai prepared to try a cross-species synthesis using the Undead's Abomination combined with Yuri's Brutal Orc. He wanted to see what wonderful chemical reactions would occur. However, in the next second, a familiar sensation flooded Subai's brain once again. It was the same feeling he had when he used the Ganges sand item to transform the Soviet base vehicle into a Yuri base vehicle. The system automatically shut down all power and started downloading data. This time, that feeling surged back. Host detected has not downloaded moment of uprising. The system will enter download update mode. In the next second, the power plant went dark and the spy satellite cloud map shut down. Subai felt a bit dizzy. Main deity, quickly exchange for a soft big bed for me. Received. Redemption successful, soft big bed. Points consumed. 1. Just as Subai was about to faint, he collapsed onto the bed. He didn't know how long it had been. A notification from the system came through. System update successful. You have fully acquired the Allied faction of Red Alert 3, as well as all units from the expansion pack. Uprising. When Subai regained his senses, he found a new Allied base vehicle added to his stock in the Stone Sea. Subai was pleasantly surprised. The benefits brought by the scalpel were not only the reorganization of troop types, but also the direct unlocking of a new faction. With this, a smile resembling that of a returning dragon appeared on Subai's lips. Magnetic Blast Infantry Transport Ship? Subai clicked confirm. A flash of golden light appeared. Magnetic Blast Infantry Transport Ship. Superconducting Electromagnetic Yacht. Huh? This left Subai feeling a bit frustrated. The recipe was wrong. It produced a yacht that didn't require a propeller for propulsion. Damn, wasted an opportunity. This made Subai feel a pang of regret. Next time, he had to create a unit from the Soviet faction. A battle fortress combined with an apocalypse tank, one that naturally crushes, and the other a pure apocalypse tank. Would it result in a crushing effect apocalypse tank? Or perhaps turn into the unit crusher from the expansion, designed specifically to crush and destroy enemies with its heavy mech. Subai wasn't sure. After all, it was a fusion of two factions. After thinking for a long time, Subai decided to use another, more stable combination of units. Radiation Engineer Magnetic Blast Infantry. Come out, come out, come out. Chemical troops. A green light flashed. And the system provided the answer. Radiation Engineer Magnetic Blast Infantry Chemical Troops. Wow, it really worked. Both types of soldiers wore heavy armor and had metallic-assisted exoskeletons. Although they merged into a weaker chemical troop, they were still units from Red Alert 3, allowing him to expand this faction. Thus, Subai felt dizzy again and lay down on the bed, waiting for the system to finish downloading. System update successful. You have fully acquired the Soviet faction of Red Alert 3, as well as all units from the expansion pack. Uprising? Awesome. Subai suddenly opened his eyes, only to see Sato Takara and Hanli staring at him. Are you okay? Chapter 229. Review of various buildings and mechanisms in Red Alert 3. Do you need me to have the system fix you up? Subai felt awkward. It's nothing, just suddenly felt tired. Why didn't you say earlier? If you're tired, I can keep you company, Sato Takara said. Hanli gave him a sidelong glance. At this moment, Subai had no time to think about such matters. After sending the two away, he directly returned to his room. Now, he could start building properly. The Allied base was operational. He began constructing a power plant. The technology of this generation's power plants was noticeably outdated, with 3 reactors being replaced by 2 turbine-powered generators, emitting puffs of white smoke. Next came the mine. The third generation of mines was clearly inferior to the second, with a monotonous design and a homogenized mining process that lacked the fun of the second generation. As for the barracks, this time they resembled tents more than before, with significant changes to their exterior. 2 balconies were added, complete with patrol sentries, giving it a more sci-fi appearance. However, it still felt somewhat lacking in character. Moving on to the vehicle factory, this generation's vehicle factory appeared much more traditional, reminiscent of an automobile manufacturing plant, lacking the strong technological vibe of the second generation's shiny, futuristic design. However, compared to the second generation, the third generation automatically generated many small maintenance drones that hovered around the vehicle factory, capable of repairing nearby armored units. What amazed Subai the most was that some damaged second-generation Grizzly tanks were also repaired by these flying robots once they approached the third-generation vehicle factory. Next was what Subai considered the most important, the Air Force Base. Previously, Subai's aerial strike capabilities had always been insufficient. After all, he had to rely on the undead's gargoyles and ancient ice dragons. In the original version of the game, there were very few aerial units capable of striking air targets. Besides the flying infantry and the floating specter, he could hardly think of any others. However, the third-generation Air Force Base was clearly much larger than the second-generation Air Command Center, reflecting a shift in the game's mechanics that placed greater emphasis on air combat. In addition to the helipads, the third generation was also tasked with producing other Air Force units, making it a heavy workload. After finishing the Air Force Base, Subai moved on to the next significant building, the dock. For the third generation, naval warfare occupied about half of the map, especially since the Pacific, where the Rising Sun Empire was located, was primarily a naval battleground. Without the time to check what units could be constructed at the dock, Subai began building the Allied High-Tech Command Center. The third generation was referred to as the Defense Bureau, but compared to the high-tech skyscraper style of the second generation, this design was noticeably lackluster, with a strong plastic feel, resembling a giant transforming toy that was hard to criticize. Lastly, he approached the construction of a superweapon, the Super Time-Space Transport. After all, each superweapon can only be built once. Since Subai has already created the time-space teleportation in the second generation, recreating it in the third generation would seem quite redundant. I wonder if the system will allow it. With this thought, Subai clicked to build. To his surprise, it actually came out. But then he recalled that the system had already stated that the second and third generations are 2 different games and do not belong to each other. In that case, Subai couldn't help but feel exhilarated. With double time-space teleportation, wouldn't that make survival invincible in the future? Continuous space jumps. After completing this, Subai chose the last building, the final offensive superweapon of the Allied forces, the Proton Impact Cannon. This new superweapon in the third generation has a square shape, resembling a larger version of a giant cannon. It does look somewhat imposing, but still seems a bit outdated. Unfortunately, according to the official setting, the Soviet general eliminated Einstein, so they cannot use the more advanced weather control device. Even while building, Subai finally went through all the Allied buildings. Now he began to see the Soviet buildings. He deployed the base vehicle again. This time, the base vehicle inherited the arched dome architectural feature from the second generation, but it still had a post-apocalyptic feel to it, reminiscent of the war-torn state of Iraq. He clicked on the power plant. A single reactor was built by workers. The technology in the third generation is evidently lagging behind. In the second generation, buildings sprang up instantly, but in the third generation, they rely on manual construction. Moreover, this generation's power plant is clearly inferior to the Tesla magnetic power generator from the second generation. Also, this reactor is not a nuclear reactor, but rather a reactor created from some chemical reaction, emitting thick black smoke. Next was the mine. There was nothing to critique here. It was just like those of the Allies and the Rising Sun Empire, lacking any distinct features and offering little playability. Additionally, the Soviet barracks were equally generic. They were practically identical to the Allied barracks, showing no distinguishing characteristics. Poor review. After completing the barracks, it was time for the vehicle factory. The name of the third-generation vehicle factory was changed to the War Factory. Compared to the base vehicle, the Soviet vehicle factory clearly resembles a base more. I wonder what the creators of the third generation were thinking. It's like they swapped a big head for a small one, turning it into a new unit. Next, Subai built the airport dock. Since they are all so similar, there was no point in critiquing each one individually. However, the combat laboratory's design was indeed drastically altered. Compared to the second generation, which had a square and distinctly national character architecture, the third generation is a complete monstrosity. A hodgepodge of various elements combined together, lacking any sense of aesthetics. Ultimately, it leads to the construction of the super weapon by the Soviet forces, with the precedent of superluminal teleportation allowing for repeated construction. There are no concerns for the Iron Curtain. They proceed directly with the construction. The third generation of Iron Curtain devices is designed too conservatively, lacking the boldness of the second generation. A giant energy device that refracts light is placed outdoors. This time, the third generation added a metal cover, diminishing its imposing presence. The final construction is a super weapon, a vacuum implosion bomb. By utilizing subatomic particles, this bomb produces a peculiar singularity upon detonation, capable of attracting all nearby units, akin to a cosmic force, resulting in powerful destruction. The visual effect is like a large yellow blob smeared across your face, an indelible sensation, which can be described as quite impactful. However, compared to this, the designer still fondly remembers the green radiation left behind after a nuclear explosion. Fortunately, they can construct it as well. After constructing and commenting on all factions' buildings, the designer is quite dissatisfied with the third generation. Chapter 230, the battlefield of the female heroes from the three factions. First of all, in terms of aesthetics, before the game's release, all veteran players anticipated that the new installment would inherit all the merits of its predecessor. They expected a complete transition from 2D to 3D buildings. However, the development team took a different approach and designed a new set of buildings to align with the recently released title. Unfortunately, these designers lacked any understanding of artistic beauty and heritage, transforming the Soviet forces into a post-apocalyptic industrial style. While they retained the clumsy characteristics, there was no sense of technology or beauty. They completely misunderstood the various trade-offs present in the second generation. As for the technologically advanced Allied forces, they obliterated any sense of technological sophistication, leaving behind buildings that resembled plastic toys. Coupled with a cartoonish map style, it truly felt like a toy battle. Just this change in aesthetics likely discouraged many veteran players of the previous game. Not to mention, the game mechanics attempted to mimic a popular title. But did the development team possess that capability? They did not. This led to part of the player base, who could barely accept the new aesthetics, abandoning the updated version due to unfamiliar controls. After all, most players enjoyed the previous game because it was simple, easy to understand, and accessible. Both casual and skilled players found joy in the gameplay. In contrast, the complex operations in the new installment left ordinary players overwhelmed. One could say that the entire game was merely a response to the popularity of the earlier title, resulting in a derivative product. Of course, this is just one person's perspective. Not all players are represented. Moreover, Subai is a pragmatist. It doesn't matter how good it looks. After all, strength is the real truth. On the other side, Zhao Haoyin crawled out of the ground. Looking at his half-destroyed body, a satisfied smile appeared on his face. He is dead. He is dead. Subai is finally dead, wanting to die together with me. Subai? Do you have that strength? Ha ha. Ha ha. At the moment when the Divine Clan's mothership exploded, Zhao Haoyin activated the life-saving rule. Jumping while walking means you 1t die. Note, as long as you keep jumping while walking, you 1t die. The instant the shockwave reached Zhao Haoyin, he jumped up awkwardly like a zombie, avoiding death from the explosion, though half of his body was blown apart. At least he survived. Moreover, he had also killed Subai. For a moment, a sense of desolation arose. The once sworn enemy, the man he wanted to kill at every moment, was finally killed by him. One could only say he was destined to be undefeated. However, for someone as wicked as Zhao Haoyin, his goals wouldn't stop, especially when it came to revenge. Subai, although you're dead, but there were others who insulted and tormented me besides you. He pronounced the names of those he felt had once insulted him, word by word, Su Xiaoya, Qi Tiantian, Qi Tongwei, Kai Yuanpei, and many, many more names. Zhao Haoyan suddenly smiled calmly. It seemed his next target was to return to his former Blue Star and wipe out all the humans there, or maybe just blow up Blue Star directly. Returning to Su Bai's side, a soldier from the peacekeeping force saluted him. This was the third-generation soldier, fully clad in bomb-proof armor, with an organ donation certificate printed on it. This made Su Bai laugh, holding his stomach. Wow. Although the modeling by the production team isn't great, their humor has definitely been inherited. A team of allied Guardian tanks rolled over, and on the armored turret sat a striking figure. She leaped gracefully in front of Su Bai. So what do you think of these tanks, Commander? This person was Tanya from the third generation. Although she looked similar to the second generation, she was equipped with a time reversal belt that could rewind to 5 minutes ago, making it easier for her to redeploy future plans. Does it look flashy and special? Tanya introduced. This is the Guardian tank from the Empire of the Rising Sun. It successfully defeated the Grizzly tank during the internal testing of the Allies and became the latest main battle tank for procurement. Do you want to try sitting in it? She winked at Su Bai. Indeed, it has inherited the traditional wave of momentum. The front waves push the back waves, and that's just one word, wave. At the same time, another team of tanks approached. Similarly, another striking figure jumped down from the tank, holding a long gun with one hand. How could those fragile tanks compare to our Iron Hammer tanks in the military camp? This is an upgraded version of the Rhino tank, enhanced with guiding beams. A high-tech weapon that can be used by both friend and foe. Commander, why not experience my tank? Said the woman, gently caressing her sniper rifle, her gaze alluring, seemingly teasing Su Bai intentionally or unintentionally. This woman is Adisha, the hero of the military camp in the third installment. A black-haired warrior with a heavy sniper rifle and a red beret. Compared to Boris from the second installment, she excels in long-range targeting and is equipped with laser guidance comparable to Boris's. However, the bombers dispatched were not the original models, but rather a different type. Two large rabbits hopped over from both sides. Tanya and Adisha grabbed Su Bai by an arm each, inviting him to the tank for a detailed discussion. With both sides being hospitable, Su Bai found it difficult to choose. After all, they belonged to different factions. Although they cooperated, their private relationships were not good. If given the chance, he should let them work together with him to improve their relationship. Just then, Yuriko floated over. How dare you two lay hands on the commander? In the next moment, Yuriko unleashed her psychic power, causing Tanya and Adisha to float up and then throw them onto the armor of their respective faction-s tanks. This action further enraged Tanya and Adisha. With a click, Tanya raised her dual pistols, and Adisha lifted her sniper rifle, aiming at Yuriko. The atmosphere was charged with tension, ready to explode. Su Bai wiped the sweat from his forehead, surprised that the relationships between these three factions were so strained. It was odd, for instance. Yuriko had no hostility toward the second-generation Tanya, yet she had a strong animosity toward the third-generation Tanya. Perhaps this is a kind of causal relationship in time and space. Without intersections, there are no entanglements. Everyone, let us calm down and put down our weapons. Su Bai said, pressing his palms down to signal the three to relax. Tanya responded, I can put down my gun if the commander comes into the Guardian tank to study it with me. Adisha chimed in that case, I'd say you don't want your head anymore. Commander, come over to the Hammer tank. I have something beautiful to show you. Yuriko then said, you two have such big frames. The commander only likes petite women like me. You might as well give up. Chapter 231, The Hidden Soldier Ring. Empowering the female commander in an instant, Su Bai found himself in this chaotic scene. He never expected that the three factions would be at odds with each other. And he couldn't mediate the situation. Tensions were high, and internal conflict could erupt at any moment. As Su Bai racked his brain for a solution, he spotted Boris in the distance, drinking from a bottle of vodka and burping loudly. A flash of inspiration struck Su Bai. Old Boris, we drank together last night, and I overindulged. I can't remember some things, and I'm feeling a bit sore today. What exactly happened? Boris put down the bottle, looking bewildered. Su Bai dashed over to him like a rabbit and threw an arm around his shoulder. Commander, what do you mean? Let's go, we must drink more. Half pulling, half pushing. He led Boris away from the chaotic scene. The commander has such a habit. Who would have thought? It's so disappointing. Even so, we must accept him. Yes. We must find a way to help him. Otherwise, the three of us will surely suffer. What Su Bai didn't expect was that his action would lead Yuriko, Adisha, and Tanya to unite temporarily as allies, determined to help Su Bai become a normal person. After leaving the three heroines, Su Bai approached the main deity and spent 500,000 points to exchange for 500 million gold coins. This money would serve as funding to continue recruiting another 1,000,000 troops. After all, the entire faction was now assembled, and a 1,000,000-strong army was just around the corner. Moreover, in the marketplace, Su Bai discovered an interesting item, the Hidden Soldier Ring. Hidden Soldier Ring. Maximum soldier count, 100. 000 allows troops conjured from one's body to be stored and gifted to others. This made Subai feel as though he had stumbled upon a treasure. Although his Red Alert army was strong, he couldn't manage every detail of the battlefield personally. Loading some soldiers into the ring and giving it to Sato Takara would help alleviate some of his command gaps. Hanali could also benefit from this, as she was now his confidant. He couldn't play favorites. Plus, she was loyal, holding onto his leg tightly. He spent another 60,000 points to obtain the 2 rings. Back in his room, watching the troops continuously produced, Subai organized them. Red Alert 2. The Allied faction has its own defense zone. The Soviet faction has its own defense zone. The Sunrise faction has its own defense zone. In Red Alert 3, the Allied faction has its own defense zone. The Soviet faction has its own defense zone. The Sunrise faction has its own defense zone. The remaining faction is still under research, known as the Wind Spirit faction. This faction currently has only Iron Cavalry, Wolf assault vehicles, and Cyclops armor. The rest consists of the undead from a well-known strategy game, whose biological attributes are quite impressive, capable of surprising outcomes on the battlefield. Subai took out a hidden soldier ring, collecting a series of units from the Sunrise Empire, including tsunami tanks, Imperial soldiers, Archer Maidens, and Rocket Angels, into the ring. Lastly, she also stored 2 Super Fortress Warrior heads, totaling an impressive force of 15,000. She herself has origins from a certain group, and some of the inspiration for various units came from her. Commanding a similarly aligned force should yield great results. As for Lizette Hanley, she was also equipped with 15,000 troops. This woman is regarded as a top student at a military academy in a certain region. She possesses strategic-level knowledge of tactics, unit counters, and infiltration. Particularly, before entering the multi-universe battlefield, a world war had just concluded. Due to her advanced combat concepts, she accelerated the total annihilation of a certain empire. Of course, this also stained her hands with the blood of enemies, leading her to fall into the ranks of a demonic squad in the multi-universe battlefield. For this woman, who has a thirst for knowledge and high technology, Subai equipped her with the most advanced units from the Allied faction in Red Alert 3. For naval combat, she received an aircraft carrier and dolphins. For land combat, she was given Javelin soldiers, multifunctional infantry vehicles, Athena cannons, and Guardian tanks. To support air combat, Frozen helicopters became her standard equipment. These units matched her combat style well, focusing on rapid advancement. After completing these arrangements, it was as if she was placing wedding rings on the fingers of these 2 women. Many people may not enjoy tear-jerking romantic scenes, so this part can be skipped without further elaboration. However, there was one person watching with gritted teeth, feeling helpless, Park Itian. She also served Subai, but why was there such a disparity between them? That individual clearly held a status akin to an Akita, while the woman from a certain empire held at least a bulldog status. Reflecting on herself, she felt she didn't even measure up to a mutt. How unfair. At this moment, Xiao Yang stealthily crept up beside Park Itian. I said, bro, don't lose heart. I heard that our Captain Subai has certain preferences. If you swallow your pride and satisfy him, the benefits might even be better than what those 2 flasks got. Next, Xiao Yang exaggerated the story of how he saw Subai hitting on Boris in the square. That night, Piao Etian dressed up deliberately. His looks somewhat reminiscent of a certain boy band from a neighboring country, and knocked on Subai's door. What the hell? Can't you sleep? What do you want? Piao Etian fidgeted, twisting his fingers nervously. I'm here to serve you. Subai. 20 minutes later, Subai finally stopped. Damn, he had encountered a pervert. Piao Etian lay on the ground, covered in bruises, his body a mess of blue and purple. Over a dozen bones were broken, and he was barely clinging to life. Bro, I just wanted your troops. I'm your loyal dog. Piao Etian sobbed uncontrollably. Subai chuckled. So that's what this was about. You come knocking on my door in the middle of the night, acting like a freak. Are you out of your mind? This guy had entered the infinite battlefield with him. He was relatively honest. Though he wasn't much of a fighter, he was quite skilled at flattery. Fine, go spend 30,000 points at the main god square to exchange for a troop storage ring, and I'll give you some soldiers. Hearing this, Piao Etian was ecstatic, dragging his bloody body. He crawled to the central square, gritted his teeth, and exchanged for a ring. Chapter 232. Invasion of the Myriad Races, standing before the infinite Great Wall. Repel the enemy. Feeling sorry for him, Subai bestowed upon him some 50 coin good brothers. The next day, Piao Etian sat in the main god square, pointing a thumb at himself and bragging. Last night, the captain and I had a deep conversation, analyzing the world situation. He was so impressed by my talent that he called me the Crouching Dragon, saying I could strategize from the comfort of my home and secure victory from 1,000 miles away. That's why he rewarded me with these elite troops. As he spoke, he patted a conscript he had summoned beside him. Xiao Liang and the death metal squad leader were skeptical. Did you persuade him with that method? Get lost. I almost crashed and burned following your advice yesterday. Commander, the enemy's wave motion engine has been successfully analyzed, but the technology is difficult to master. We can use the prototype as a power source for superweapons to enhance their destructive power. After relentless efforts, engineers from several nations finally mastered the operation of the wave motion engine. This was already quite an achievement. Subai hadn't expected the engineers to replicate the wave motion engine. Being able to operate it was a significant success. How much can it amplify the power of superweapons? That was the key question. According to simulations, it can increase the destructive power of a nuclear bomb by approximately tenfold, with similar effects on other weapons. Damn. The nuclear bomb's power has been amplified tenfold. Originally, one nuke could destroy a city. Now it could wipe out an area equivalent to 10 cities. Thinking about it, that's way more insane. Too bad it still doesn't match the power of the wave motion gun, which can obliterate satellites. But hey, step by step. Meanwhile, the main god has issued the next battlefield mission. Due to continuous tunneling across parallel universes, powerful beings from myriad races are about to breach the defensive barriers and invade humanity. Team Demon will join forces with other squads from the pan-universe battlefield to resist the invasion. In this mode, free combat between members of the same race is prohibited. Prepare for defense, or countless human parallel universes will face catastrophic destruction. Subai relayed the mission to the others. This time, the difficulty seemed to surpass all previous challenges. The myriad races' powerhouses, like the Star Alliance Celestials they had encountered before, just one strong race among countless realms, had already given Subai a hard time. Now, facing countless such formidable opponents, the difficulty was unimaginable. Hearing this, Xiao Liang and the death metal squad leader were nearly scared out of their wits. But upon learning that not just their team, but all squads from the pan-universe battlefield would participate, they calmed down a bit. If they were going to die, they'd die together. With so many others dragging them along, it wasn't as terrifying. Transmission initiated, 109,321. Everyone opened their eyes to find themselves under a starry cosmos, with galaxies and countless stars shimmering brightly, standing atop a massive city wall. Immediately, rankings for each squad appeared before them. 1 Team Demon, rank, none. 2 Team Zhongzhou, rank, none. 3 Team East America, rank, none. 4 Team India, rank, none. It seemed that among all squads, Team Demon's name was notoriously infamous. Otherwise, despite having no rank like the others, they were listed first. There were 17 squads in total, representing the strongest warriors selected from various regions across countless parallel universes. But Subai didn't pay it much mind. Just as he was about to summon his army to scout the nearby area, murmurs reached his ears. Glancing into the distance along the wall, he spotted a group far away, seemingly avoiding Team Demon. Could they be squads from other regions? At that moment, a young, robust figure emerged from the crowd. Seeing him, Subai froze in shock. The person looked incredibly familiar. Wasn't that Zheng Jia, the former captain of Team Demon? But he was supposed to be dead. How have you come back to life again? And why are you showing up with other teams? Just as Subai was puzzled, the other party had already approached him. Expressionless. Are you the new captain of the demons? I am. Are you Zheng Jia? The other party did not respond, but continued asking. Did you kill Zheng Jia to take his position as captain? Or was he killed by a more powerful force? What if I say I killed him? What will you do? It was evident that this person had ill intentions. Subai was not afraid of confrontation. If you did kill him, then we have nothing to talk about. The other party turned to leave. Subai smiled. Then what if Zheng Jia died fighting against one of my sworn enemies and passed all his resentment onto me? What would you do? The other party suddenly stopped, turned around, and said, I would kill you. After saying that, he turned to leave again. Subai felt utterly confused. He immediately dispatched 2 shadows to blend into the group to find out what was happening. Captain, you can't provoke him like this. After all, this is a joint battle. Moreover, this time we can't freely PK. Neither side can do anything to the other. What's the point of making such harsh statements? What's the point? Don't you know? He is the evil split from me, slaughtering any race without humanity, and he once said I was too weak and even killed my girlfriend. Subai was speechless. He didn't expect to inherit such power from the other party. He also inherited the karma of his life. However, so what? Whether you are the captain of the Central Continent team or another team, as long as you dare to provoke me, I'll kill you without hesitation. Next, he continued to gather information. I represent the strongest Central Continent team, and we are forming an alliance with major teams from other continents to respond to the upcoming enemy attacks. Upon hearing this, all the other representative teams agreed immediately. Zheng Jia was very pleased. For freedom, peace, and kindness, I call this alliance the Divine Alliance. At this point, Subai no longer wanted to listen. It was meaningless. Just then, the voice of the main god echoed in everyone's minds. Defend this great wall of all realms. It is the stronghold preventing various tribes from entering the human world. If the Great Wall falls, all team members will be obliterated. At the same time, outside the wall. Vibrations from the earth were felt coming from all directions. Subai quickly instructed his nearby team members to prepare for battle. Each person displayed their powerful troops, forming a series of orderly defensive formations, combining ranged and melee units, and utilizing the terrain to set up strongholds. Chapter 233, Establishing Strongholds, Instant Kill of the Dungeon Lord. Meanwhile, on the other side, the Divine Alliance. Countless troops were summoned, and formations were arranged. Their total military strength far exceeded that of the local demon squad. With the sounding of a horn, all units entered combat readiness. First, melee troops charged into the mist, exploring the area and eliminating monsters. Soon, the screams of dying monsters echoed from all directions, and the points for Subai's team began to rise steadily. Each monster killed granted the team some points and also increased their experience. However, for Subai at this stage, leveling up required hundreds of billions of experience. They would need to kill tens of millions of monsters in one go just to gain a single level. This was the difficulty of leveling up after reaching level 90, making it somewhat optional for him now. Han Li approached Subai, saying, "Master, according to the rules set by the main deity this time, we can use points to establish cities and fortifications beneath the walls to defend against greater threats." Subai nodded. He had just reviewed the task rules. To withstand the relentless attacks from countless races and protect this great wall, they needed strongholds to continuously replenish their forces. This was essential for ensuring human safety. Of course, if any team's members exhausted their troops in the upcoming battles, they would hold no value in the eyes of the main deity. Even using potions to restore mental strength and increase military power would not grant them any chances. They would be eliminated immediately, thus reinforcing their defensive base, minimizing casualties. And continuously replenishing troops while wearing down the enemy in an endless cycle was crucial to achieving a balance that would at least prevent defeat. After 20 minutes, Subai's teammates had already defeated over 10,000 enemies. The points earned could be used to build defensive positions outside the walls. Subai entrusted this task to Han Li, who had a solid grasp of war tactics and would avoid any situation like that of the blue sky architecture. Meanwhile, amidst the astonishment of countless members from other teams, Subai summoned his floating giant island. Stepping onto it, he relied on its powerful firepower to clear out the remaining enemy forces on the battlefield and explore the areas shrouded in the fog of war. After all, remaining stationary to defend against the tide of incoming enemies would be futile, even with repeated use of super weapons, as it would be an endless battle. It was better to explore, as it might yield other valuable information. After pushing forward for another 10 minutes, the voice of the main deity echoed through. The captain of the Zhengzhou team, Zhengya, successfully established the central base in the Forbidden City. Subai never expected that while piloting the floating giant island and the super fortress, defeating numerous enemies, his points would increase at a speed that couldn't compare to Zhengya himself. It seems that this Zhengya really has some skills, otherwise, he wouldn't have dared to provoke him face to face. However, it didn't matter much because Han Li had also constructed the central base for the demon squad, the Louvre. Subai refocused his mind and continued advancing with the floating island. In the distance, he discovered a massive shell nest from which countless giant beetles were swarming out of the burrow, continuously rushing towards the Wanjia Great Wall to deploy troops. At that moment, the main god provided a corresponding alert. Burrow Lord creates Burrow Nation troops. 656. Subai frowned. Could this be one of the many races attacking the Wanjia Great Wall? Or perhaps, like themselves, they could earn points by killing soldiers on the human side. They could construct buildings, continuously produce troops, and intensify their offensive. If his speculation was correct, this would be bad news for all the teams on the battlefield. It was likely that the races attacking the Wanjia Great Wall weren't limited to just this one. There could be dozens, hundreds, or even thousands of them. If the elite talents of the human race couldn't achieve absolute dominance, they would be gradually worn down by overwhelming numbers. The Wanjia Great Wall would be hard to defend. Just as Subai was deep in thought, a massive flying beetle suddenly charged towards him from the sky. As it flapped its wings, countless smaller flying beetles surged forward. What a bold human, daring to come out alone. Let me take the first kill. Boom. Subai's 3 energy cannons fired beams that instantly struck the giant beetle. But it had no effect. When the beams hit the beetle's shell, the energy actually rebounded to other areas. Subai was taken aback. This creature could withstand beam weapons. Flying troops, Tengu mechs, Apollo fighter jets, MiG fighters, engage. One after another. Aircraft took off from the floating island and joined the battle against the giant beetle in the sky. All these attack units fired solid projectiles, avoiding ineffective effects like beam reflection. Sure enough, after the aircraft joined the fray, swathes of enemy beetles began to fall from the sky. With a loud bang, the leading giant beetle crashed onto the port of the floating island, causing a massive tremor. Aha! Foolish humans. Today, you will be the first to die? A massive beetle faced Su-bai, seemingly capable of crushing him with a single swipe. However, Su-bai showed no fear. He drew his Browning and fired at the beetle's shell. Huh, foolish. How can such a weak weapon penetrate the armor of the Lord of the Abyss, the King of Shells? But in the next moment, several giant cannons on the floating island simultaneously targeted the Lord of the Abyss, with a series of thunderous close-range bombardments. The shell shattered, flames erupting into the sky. Amidst the Lord of the Abyss's continuous wails, the gigantic creature finally released its grip on the floating island and fell into its underground lair. Su-bai watched the Lord of the Abyss plummet and cursed inwardly. What a fool. Knowing full well his defenses are incredibly strong, he still dared to withstand my close-range bombardments head-on. The floating island descended, and tanks surged forth. Under the torrent of steel, countless beetles were exterminated. The voice of the deity echoed in everyone's minds. Congratulations to the demon teams Su-bai for successfully exterminating the beetle clan and acquiring their ability, Beam Resistance. Note: Beam Resistance grants all troops a 50 chance to trigger a defense effect against lightspeed attacks, causing 0 damage. In an instant, the other team members were shocked. What the heck? Has the new captain of the demon team gone mad? In just an hour, he wiped out an entire race. And he gained such a powerful ability. Some speculated he might just be putting on a show, but in terms of strength, our coalition of over a dozen teams is still stronger. Chapter 234, Points Distributed. All teams compete. Although they said that, it was clear that due to Su-bai's annihilation of the giant beetle race, the demon team's score surged ahead, leaving the other teams far behind. 1. Demon Team, Rank 1, Points, 325, 548, 2. Central State Team, Rank 2, Points, 158, 958, 3. Eastern America Team, Rank 3, Points, 59, 854, 4. Indian State Team, Rank 4, Points, 25, 848. Their advantage could continue to expand. Su-bai returned to his throne on the floating island, leading his troops steadily forward. He noticed that the score of the demon team alone exceeded the combined scores of all the teams in the Celestial Alliance. Zhengya frowned tightly. He hadn't expected Su-bai to be far more powerful than his own demon body. Originally, killing his own demon body was something he intended to do. He hadn't anticipated that Su-bai had inherited the form of his demon body, becoming even stronger. It seemed he had underestimated him earlier. A smirk appeared on his lips as he waved his hand. Millions of celestial soldiers descended and began to attack the zombie clan. Just as Su-bai was directing his troops to turn in another direction, the main god's prompt sounded once again. Congratulations to the Central Continent team, Zhengzha, for successfully eliminating the zombie clan and acquiring the ability to resist viruses. Note: all troops develop significant antibodies to bacteria and viruses, with over 70 immunity. Congratulations to the Central Continent team, Zhanlan, for successfully eliminating the giant frog clan and acquiring the ability of Super Leap. Note: all troops gain Super Leap ability, with jumping power increased 5-fold. These 2 consecutive full-screen announcements even made Su-bai pause for a moment. He didn't expect the Central Continent team to be this strong. In one team, 2 individuals had eliminated 2 races among the myriad of clans. Moreover, their points quickly caught up and surpassed those of the demon team. Looking at the changes in the team, Su-bai felt no displeasure. Although the team leader Zhengzha had deemed him an opponent, as long as the other party didn't provoke him, he wouldn't bother with them. Besides, the Central Continent team represented a certain nation, so Su-bai had even less reason to take action against them. On the other side, atop the wall of all realms, various small teams were jubilant. Amazing Central Continent team. Just now I was shocked. The demon team, with just 1 team's points, managed to overwhelm our entire alliance. Their strength is terrifying. Yes, fortunately, the Central Continent team leader Zhengzha is even stronger, leading the entire team to eliminate 2 races consecutively. Impressive. It's a pity that our Celestial Alliance has come to this battlefield where PK is not allowed. Otherwise, we could have used our strength to directly wipe out the demon team. Wouldn't that be better? Alas, it's a pity the main god doesn't allow PK, clearly showing favoritism towards the demon team. While the small team members were happy, they also felt a bit gloomy. There was no way around it. These teams had previously suffered oppression from the demon team, especially under the former leader, the demon Zhengzha. If the 2 teams were on the same battlefield, the entire team could have been wiped out by the demon team. Thus, everyone shared a common enemy. Meanwhile, most of the members of the demon team were new recruits brought in by Su-bai. They had no grievances with the previous teams. They were just methodically constructing buildings and expanding their base, step by step. After all, troop strength was crucial on the battlefield. Although Su-bai was bravely fighting in the front, the rear needed to be solid as well. Barracks completed. Outposts completed. Demon lair established. Hell Lake constructed. Armored academy built. Magic hall completed. Chemical refinery established. While all the teams were busy building their respective troop-producing structures, there was only one team, with just one person. Indifferent. He did not join any alliance, nor did he establish any structures. Not even a single enemy was defeated. He still had a score of 0. This small team was led by Lung Hanyue, the captain of the lunar team. The lunar team is a newly added regional team under the main deity. It does not belong to any place on the blue planet, but originates from the territory of the lunar colony on the satellite of the blue planet. In many parallel universes, the moon has long been a colony of humanity. Therefore, including it is not too strange. At this moment, Lung Hanyue sat on a recliner, dressed casually, with his hands behind his head, looking completely relaxed, as if he were on vacation. In the distance, members of the Celestial Alliance team observed this scene and began to whisper among themselves. They are definitely not a team from the blue planet. They are inherently reclusive. Look at him doing nothing, like a fool. I guess living in space must make people a bit off. I don't know what the main deity is thinking. Even forming a small team with extraterrestrial beings, and it's a one-man show. How impressive can he be? I heard someone say that those born in the universe naturally possess a spiritual framework, and their quantum electrodynamics surpass ordinary people, making them particularly sensitive. Maybe they even have some special abilities? Sensitive indeed, too sensitive, afraid that socializing will hurt their feelings. But don't worry, no matter how arrogant he is. He can't compare to Zhengya, the captain of the Central Continent team. Exactly, he definitely can't compare. Just look at how he sent those hundreds of mismatched soldiers flying with a single slap. On Su Bai's side, thousands of self-destructing trucks were covered with an iron curtain device, ignoring the enemy's toxic splashes. They rushed into the enemy's lair, waiting for the iron curtain to dissipate. Meanwhile, countless members of the Night Demon clan were attacking Su Bai from behind. The two races seemed to be planning to sandwich Su Bai. Another 1,000 self-destructing trucks gathered. This time, Su Bai equipped these trucks with a time-space teleportation device. In the next moment, these self-destructing trucks appeared within the Night Demon clan's base. At the same time, the iron curtain in the Spider clan's base suddenly vanished. 2 waves of self-destructing trucks exploded simultaneously. The battlefield instantly erupted with thousands of mushroom clouds, spectacular and beautiful. Huge shockwaves collided back and forth, completely annihilating the bases of the 2 races. The life value of the Spider matriarch dropped to 0 in the explosion and perished. Although the Night Demon King survived the massive explosion, he could not withstand the aftermath of the self-destructing trucks, succumbing to the radiation that covered the ground. The Night Demon King gradually turned into a pool of green water amidst the radiation. The entire battlefield was in ruins. Countless structures were destroyed, the land was scorched, and the air was filled with acrid smoke and radiation. The power of the explosion was immense, not only destroying the bases of 2 races, but also causing significant damage to the surrounding environment. Chapter 235. Severely plunder the enemy's abilities. Congratulations to the demon teams Su Bai for successfully eliminating the Spider race and plundering the ability of the Spider race. Silk armor. Note: all troops receive protection from silk, increasing physical defense by 200. Congratulations to the demon teams Su Bai for successfully eliminating the Night Ghost race and plundering the ability of the Night Ghost race. Knight's brutality. Note: all troops enter a frenzy state after midnight, increasing attack speed by 30 until 6 a.m. Su Bai gently raised his head. Compared to plundering the Spider race, the ability from the Night King race was even more powerful. It provided a multiplicative effect, enhancing output speed by 30. Indeed, it was a good skill, though unfortunately, it could only be used at night. Continue. Su Bai waved his hand, dispatching shadows and aerial troops to continue exploring the fog of war area. As soon as they discovered enemy structures, they would focus their attacks to ensure the complete annihilation of one race, leaving no survivors. However, Su Bai had a nagging feeling that the races he had eliminated did not seem very strong. If they all possessed such strength, he felt there would be no need for the gods to build the Great Wall to block the invasion of various races against humanity. After Su Bai had wiped out 2 more races, the demon team's score returned to first place, and his subordinates expanded their bases even further. Their development was akin to a snowball effect, with the team's strength continuously growing. Yet, Su Bai also noticed something peculiar. Despite having eradicated 3 races closest to the Great Wall, there were still many troops from various races continuously launching attacks. These troops appeared as if they were being refreshed in a game, emerging suddenly and in an endless stream. Su Bai speculated about the possibility that there might still be more races beyond the Great Wall continuously spawning troops. Their method of attack seemed akin to having superdimensional teleportation, allowing them to instantly reach the front lines of battle for rapid deployment. Su Bai felt this possibility was quite high, but without evidence, he could only proceed cautiously. Meanwhile, atop the Great Wall, Lung Hanyue, lounging in a chair, stretched lazily. I've rested enough. It's time to get my body moving. After twisting his neck, He stood up from the chair and leaped off the Great Wall, disappearing without a trace. Outside the Great Wall, the leader of the Indus team, Sing Fei, laughed heartily. They actually found the Golden Race, the Golden Elephant Tribe. I'm going to get rich. These precious giant statue soldiers can be exchanged for resources after defeating them. Especially the captain, who also has a recycling function. Points. All of these are my points. Boom, boom, boom. The flamethrower behind the blade lizard warriors erupted in a burst of fire, propelling the lizard warriors into the air. They flocked to the golden giant and began to ravage its body. Soon, these giant statue soldiers were enveloped by the viscous liquid released by the blade lizard warriors. Then, the golden giant slowly melted away, turning into pools of clear liquid. The captain of the team, Sing Fei, waved his hand and collected all the gold into his storage ring. He felt joyful and excited. These precious metals could be exchanged for points, and defeating the giant statue tribe would also grant him their abilities. A win-win situation. At that moment, the lord of the golden giant soldiers burst out from the temple, shooting countless golden bullets with a wave of his hand, taking down many blade lizard warriors in the air. Oomph. The main character has finally arrived. Sing Fei conjured a curved blade from the storage ring and rode a mother lizard dragon to charge forward. Countless dimensional slashes illuminated the air. The void split open. Die. Bang, bang, bang. Similarly, the enemy lord wielded a red spear that radiated light. Sing Fei's pupils suddenly contracted. This red spear was a relic-like existence, the Anuki's spear. A mythical weapon. How could it appear in the hands of the golden giant tribe? Before he could comprehend, the opponent summoned countless poisonous butterflies that released toxic mist in front of him. What? How could the enemy tribe summon a type of soldier from their chest? And it was silicon-based life, summoning carbon-based life. Before he could make sense of it, the spear had already pierced through his chest, plundering the blade lizard warrior of the team leader. The expressionless golden face of the golden giant lord slowly broke into a smile, gradually transforming into the visage of a cold moon. Ha ha. Indeed, plundering the soldiers of the same tribe is much more interesting. As he spoke, he summoned the blade lizard warriors he had just plundered. These warriors possessed powerful melee capabilities and exceptional flying abilities, as well as the ability to release special slime to dissolve enemies. Quite impressive, since the cold moon belonged to the lunar humans. He inherently had no common language with the humans of the blue planet. Ever since entering the battlefield of myriad realms, he discovered that being born in the universe endowed him with a unique mental ability, the ability to seize control, transforming one's entire mental power into a form of energy. One can enter the bodies of other races and take control of their brains. Not only can they acquire the abilities of their target, but they can also unleash their own created troops. Although already powerful, they remain unsatisfied. Their goal is to become even stronger. Naturally, the quickest way to achieve this is to eliminate stronger team members and plunder their troops. However, this time the main deity has prohibited intra-race combat. But what does that matter? This restriction is ineffective for them. They can possess enemies, become part of the opposing faction, and then attack team members. This way, they can still plunder the enemy's troops. Of course, they are not worried about causing chaos within their team's defenses, leading to an invasion of the Great Wall by numerous races. Because plundering the enemy's troops essentially equates to transferring abilities, it does not result in an overall decrease in combat strength. Therefore, they act without restraint. The character licked their lips. Should they target Zhengya or the demon team's Subai next? Both of their troops seem strong, and they want them all. Ha ha ha. Children make choices. But I want them all. On Subai's side, news came in. Congratulations to Demon Team Sato Takara for successfully eliminating the Leech Clan and acquiring the Leech Clan's ability, Bloodthirsty Damage. Note: all melee units on our side can steal 20 health points from enemy units when attacking. Upon hearing this, Subai couldn't help but frown. Sato Takara actually hit the jackpot, annihilating the Leech Clan and receiving such an incredible reward. Although it wasn't Subai who gained it, at least his loyal subordinate acquired the ability to siphon health, which isn't too different from his own. In short, overall combat power has still increased. Each race in this vast multiverse possesses unique abilities, which is quite interesting. Just as Subai was anticipating the next race he might encounter, a large firework was released ahead, displaying 3 letters. SOS. Could it be that other team members are in trouble? If that's the case, then there must be a strong race over there, ripe for him to plunder their abilities. Thus, Subai immediately commanded the floating island to move in that direction. Since the battlefield remains in a state of eternal night, the plundering skill bonus has increased the overall movement speed of the entire army by 30. The movement speed is already quite fast. As the troops advanced, they fired upon enemies, eliminating countless foes along the way, and even wiped out one race in the process. Congratulations to the Demon Team's Subai for successfully eliminating the Jumpworm Clan and acquiring their powerful jumping ability. Note: all units of the army can jump immediately. with the jumping distance doubled. On the other side, the team from a certain region was already in despair. Their captain had previously sent a distress signal. The members stationed at the edge of the Great Wall of Worlds immediately mobilized to provide support. However, upon arrival, they found that the captain had already been taken down by the opposing forces. Massive golden giant troops and countless strong, hard giants, along with many ethereal butterflies, made it difficult for the team members to cope. After several rounds of attack, 9 team members failed to eliminate a single wave of enemies and were instead pushed back repeatedly by the giant troops. After a struggle with their thoughts, the team members decided to retreat and organize the alliance to launch a joint attack. Unfortunately, they were already one step too late. Their escape route was blocked by the Golden Giant Lord, who charged at them again. In a moment of daze, a female team member watched as the Golden Giant Lord, disguised as a cold figure, instantly killed another member of the team. The golden dagger ripped through that member's body. Acquired the Jungle Leopard unit from the regional team. TCH. Useless trash. The golden dagger was retracted, and the cold figure shook off the blood. This was already the 5th member of the regional team he had killed. However, despite acquiring so many units, none of them were to his liking. Only their captain's lizard was somewhat acceptable. The rest were utterly unremarkable. A wave of boredom surged in his heart. The regional team was truly pathetic. Just then, in the distance, Su Bai's army also arrived. The cold figure turned to look, and his eyes immediately shone with a bright light. Roar. Finally here. Finally here. Is this the army of Su Bai, the captain of the demon team? So many. So complete. It's a pity that the acquisition of units is random, but I want them all. What a painful dilemma. Buzz. The golden dagger instantly pierced through the female team member's body again. The cold figure licked the blood off the dagger and then summoned his units. Ethereal butterflies, golden giant troops, blade lizard warriors, and hellfire battleships, with a total of over a dozen types and numbers exceeding hundreds of thousands. Fully prepared, he raised his dagger. Kill for me. Su Bai? Your units are mine now. Ha ha. Amidst bursts of wild laughter and joy, suddenly, several thick beams of light appeared in the sky. They shot into the formation of the Cold Moon's army at an astonishing speed. This sudden attack triggered a massive explosion, enveloping the entire battlefield in intense light and shockwaves. Hundreds of soldiers were instantaneously vaporized by the extreme temperature of the beams, disappearing into the air without even a scream. The ground was severely affected, melted into a crystalline glass state, resembling a charred wasteland. Soon after, a deep rumbling sound echoed from afar, as if the earth itself was trembling. A torrent of steel surged forward like a frenzied tsunami towards the Cold Moon's forces. This steel wave consisted of countless armored units, including tanks and armored vehicles, tightly aligned to form an impenetrable line. These armored units fired while mercilessly advancing towards the Cold Moon's army. The captain of the demon squad was indeed formidable. Once the forces were unleashed, blood flowed for miles. The Cold Moon acknowledged this, realizing that the opponent was the captain of demons, the strongest man in the entire multiverse squad. Without some strength, how could one attain such a position? However, the Cold Moon remained calm. He immediately ordered the Golden Giant soldiers to shield the front, resisting the enemy's bombardment. The Golden Giant soldiers possessed excellent beam resistance and highly resilient skin, granting them damage immunity. In an instant, a Golden Giant wall was constructed. What he did not know was that Su Bai also noticed this giant wall, his eyes gleaming with greed. Wow, so much gold. Isn't this a windfall? Ever since parting ways with the Blade Queen, his finances had not been replenished. Instead, he had exchanged many points for money to reinforce his troops. Now, he had very little economic resources on hand. It was as if he was dozing off, and someone was offering him a pillow. What a stroke of luck. All the Apocalypse tanks and crushers from Red Alert 3, even under heavy fire, were ordered to seize that golden wall. The Tiberium tanks and the newly appeared unit, the Crusher, were equipped with massive rolling crushers at the front. These crushers were fitted with devastating tungsten-coated grinders, functioning like harvesters reaping wheat. Upon contact with enemy units, no matter how tough the armor, they would be crushed into heaps of scrap metal. Even the Apocalypse tanks were equipped with these crushers. Su Bai's goal was to have these crushing units pulverize the Golden Giant wall into small pieces, making it easier for his transport vehicles to move in for mining. After all, what lay before him was not an enemy. It was clearly a mountain of wealth. Even if a few tanks are damaged during the charge, some armor is inconsequential. It's all worth it. However, Long Hanyue does not know this, and instead continues to laugh maniacally, actively seeking death at close range. Then I shall fulfill your wish. Su Bai, held battleship catapult. Aim carefully at the enemy units charging towards us, and blow them up. Chapter 237. Don't be too confident. You think you're strong, but you haven't met Su Bai. The Hell battleship catapult is a magical weapon. Each giant stone it hurls at enemy units not only causes tremendous magical damage upon landing, but can also transform into a powerful Hellfire unit that continues to attack the enemy. It can be said that the more it fights, the more units it produces, making it a powerful siege weapon. The first Hellfire meteorite fell, striking a tank in the front row of Su Bai's forces. The tank's armor shook a couple of times, although it lost some health. It did not affect its movement. At the same time, the Hellfire stood up from the meteorite and continued to attack. Boom! The third and fourth meteorites fell, and more Hellfires appeared on the battlefield, relentlessly pounding Su Bai's tanks. However, Su Bai didn't care at all. This level of sacrifice was trivial. On the contrary, Leng Hanyue was so happy that he jumped up. You foolish thing, Su Bai. You can't even fight and still manage to become the leader of the demon squad. The main god is really unfair. Thinking of this, Leng Hanyue felt a pang of jealousy. Why? With his strength, couldn't he joined the demon squad? Every time he thought about it, he hated himself for not slaughtering everyone in the lunar base before entering the infinite battlefield. Otherwise, perhaps because of his excessive killings, he could also have joined the strongest team, the demon squad. Before Leng Hanyue could pull himself back from those memories, the situation on the battlefield changed dramatically. The golden giant statues in the front suddenly collapsed. Upon closer inspection, he could see that the crushing machines in front of the enemy's armored units were continuously grinding the golden giant statues' legs. Shards of gold flew everywhere. The golden giant statues that lost their legs could barely support themselves and were instead crushed by more crushing units, turning into fragments scattered across the ground. In less than 3 minutes, the entire golden defensive wall was breached by Su Bai. At the same time, various armored vehicles from the rear surged forward, crazily slaughtering Leng Hanyue's forces in the back row. With the front line lost, the back row was mostly filled with Hell battleships, these siege units with slow attack speeds but great power. Even though he had the ability to continuously release toxic powder on the battlefield, confusing the enemy's attacks, it was a pity that the opponent consisted entirely of armored units. The powder couldn't penetrate at all, rendering it ineffective. Instead, the enemy's aerial units swiftly shot down everything. Having lost all his support, Leng Hanyue was taken aback and immediately turned to flee. How could this be possible? How many types of troops did that opponent possess? He simply couldn't comprehend it. His seemingly foolproof formation had been easily shattered by the enemy. How could such a devastating unit be so powerful? Even his golden giant soldiers, who could withstand considerable damage, were unable to resist. In the blink of an eye, he had already run over 10 kilometers. Unfortunately, he still couldn't escape the bombardment from the skies. Dozens of missiles targeted him, creating massive craters on the ground. Despite Leng Hanyue's attempts to maneuver, he couldn't avoid such concentrated fire. Injured all over, he could no longer hold on and had to exit the body of the golden giant lord, reverting to his normal appearance. This allowed him to avoid damage caused by friendly fire. Panting heavily, he collapsed to the ground, drenched in cold sweat, his teeth chattering. The unwillingness in his heart continued to swell. But what could he do? He couldn't fight back. All he could do was get up from the ground and disappear into the endless night. In a distant spot, he turned back to look at the battlefield, where Su Bai was wreaking havoc. Su Bai? Next time, you won't be so lucky. Congratulations to the demon teams, Su Bai, for successfully annihilating the Golden Giant clan and plundering their abilities. Prosperous. Note: after acquiring this ability, eliminate enemies to earn points multiplied by 12 times, Su Bai smirked. Although the reward wasn't impressive, the thousands of giant golden statues were incredibly valuable resources. At the same time, Su Bai waved his hand, and hundreds of ox carts emerged from the stone sea, beginning to harvest the abundant spoils on the golden ground. Just as Su Bai was enjoying his success, a man appeared in the distance, walking through the air. With a loud boom, he landed, creating a massive pit over a kilometer wide. The newcomer was Zhengya, who had come in response to a distress call from the Yanzhou team. He surveyed the scene before him, filled with corpses, including those of Yanzhou team members. And there stood Su Bai in the distance, looking quite pleased. Zhengya's right eye twitched. Could it be that Su Bai had killed those from the Yanzhou team? However, the main deity didn't say that this war couldn't involve conflicts within the same faction. Could it be that the main deity has granted him an exemption? A loud bang raised countless clouds of dust. Zhengya arrived in front of Su Bai and asked, "So, how did you kill so many members of the team from that region? What did they do to provoke you? Has your bloodthirsty nature been ignited again?" Zhengya's eyes glinted coldly, and a powerful aura of killing intent erupted from him. Su Bai merely snorted disdainfully and said, "They are just too useless. In my world, I would have completely destroyed their country. Such an arrogant nation shouldn't even exist." Zhengya clenched his fists. It turned out that Su Bai was the one who killed the members of that team. Since he could kill them, did it mean that he could also kill Su Bai? Attacks are mutual after all. The main deity couldn't be biased to the extent that only allowed Su Bai to attack members of other teams while preventing retaliation. Therefore, he prepared to take action against Su Bai. At that moment, the remaining members of the team rushed over. Captain, Captain, we were so scared. So scared. Zheng Jia shielded them behind him and reassured, don't worry, as long as I'm here, Su Bai won't harm you again. The remaining members looked confused. Captain, Su Bai didn't harm us, right? Didn't the rules say that factions can't fight each other? It was Su Bai who defeated the Golden Colossus tribe that allowed us to escape. So it seems he didn't specifically save us. At least, he didn't harm us. Zheng Jia was taken aback. The power that was about to explode from his chest dissipated. Are you saying that Su Bai saved you? He asked the remaining members. And indeed, that was the case. Hearing this, Zheng Jia found it hard to believe. If it were the demon form of Zheng Jia, he was sure that the demon would have watched the Golden Colossus soldiers kill all the members of that team. He would then take action to eliminate the Golden Colossus himself, thus enjoying a feast of slaughter. A win-win situation. Chapter 238, The Mysterious Eastern Team. The secret ritual, so the members of that team weren't killed by you? Su Bai scoffed. If they provoke me, I'd have no problem killing them all. Why was Zheng Jia from the central team so eager to meddle? Is he overflowing with compassion? Su Bai couldn't be bothered with these people and turned to leave, leaving Zheng Jia and the remaining live members standing there. Zheng Jia murmured, could it be that the new demon team leader isn't as bad as he seems? With this battle concluded, and a field full of resources, Su Bai felt quite pleased. However, he couldn't just stay in one place guarding the mining truck, as that would delay progress. So, he used a nanocore from a certain empire to set up several mining sites and defensive structures here, along with many walls, sealing off this area to create an exclusive mining zone for Su Bai. He then boarded the floating island and continued to explore ahead. By the Great Wall of the Multiverse, all the bases fortified by the teams were now solid as a rock. The Alliance had combined all their bases and defensive facilities, and their troop deployment was sufficient to withstand the enemy's attacks. Both sides had reached a kind of balance. Xiao Liang and the leader of the Shamate group were already unable to contain their excitement, eager to explore this unknown area. They also gathered their troops and prepared to set off. At that moment, Xiao Liang's eyes lit up, and he couldn't help but whistle. Leader, look at that girl over there. She's stunning. Wow, she really is pretty. Is that the team from a certain island nation? What a pity we can't freely engage in battles. Otherwise, we could have some fun. The two of them gazed at the female members of the island nation's team, drooling. The island nation's team, representing the country to the east, consisted entirely of women. It was said that in a parallel universe, when the nation invaded others, all the men were sent to fight and ultimately face defeat. All the males were executed by the Allied forces, leaving the country with a surplus of women. Thus, the team was made up entirely of young and beautiful females. They set off. Let us follow them. Maybe we can take advantage of the situation. The two said as they trailed behind the island nation's team, waiting for a chance to strike should they face defeat. After all, they had already saved them, so it would be reasonable for them to pay a price in return. Thus, they followed this group of beauties to a desolate area, where they finally stopped. The captain of the island team said, "Is everyone ready?" All team members nodded in unison and changed into traditional kimonos, which made the two hidden behind a rock drool with excitement. Wow, this is amazing. They've entered the storyline. However, it was a bit strange, in such a dangerous battlefield. What were they planning to do? Before they could figure it out, the female captain of the island team pulled out something. Prepare the bedding. I'm going to open the portal. Next, each of you must ensure you put in enough effort to successfully give birth to a demon. With that, a blue portal suddenly opened with a loud bang. A man with a pale purple complexion walked out. He had a head full of spiky yellow hair and was muscular, towering over 2 meters tall. Around his neck hung a massive string of beads, and at his waist was an unknown samurai sword, clearly not human. Oh, great Conqueror Caecilius. We praise you. The Conqueror Caecilius looked at the group of graceful beauties before him and snorted coldly. Humans? Do you know what it means to summon me? The greatest swordsman of the demon realm? The captain of the Eastern team lowered her head. Of course we know. You are the strongest swordsman of the Demon Shadow clan. We only admire you, not challenge you. Moreover, we summoned you this time hoping you could help us. As she spoke, the captain's face turned red. Ha ha. You are quite greedy, wanting me as an apostle to help you give birth to demon beings? Fine, since you are so sincere, I shall grant you your wish. He then lifted the alluring face of the Eastern team captain. With a gentle demeanor like that of a Yamato woman, his heart was filled with malice and schemes. The Eastern team captain was overjoyed. Once she returned to her world and gave birth to a demon being, wouldn't she be able to restore the glory of the old empire and sweep across the world again? This time, she would make the entire world kneel at her feet. The Cherry Blossom Empire would rule the globe, and she would become the queen uniting the world, the new Empress Himiko of the new century. Conqueror Caecilius extended his long, pointed tongue. At that moment, the leader of a punk group suddenly jumped out from a corner. With a swift kick, he directly struck Conqueror Caecilius's backside. The sudden incident caused Caecilius to bite his own tongue. You dare deceive me, woman. I didn't. I have no idea where they came from. Humph. I'll take your word for it. After I deal with these two, I'll take care of you. Xiao Liang climbed to the top of a stone and pointed at Conqueror Caecilius. Where did this monster come from, daring to tease the flower girl? As the protector of flowers, I will not allow it. The Eastern team looked on in disbelief. They had been careless and had not noticed that these two from the demon team were tailing them. If a fight broke out, the women wouldn't hesitate to take down Xiao Liang and the punk leader. Now, they could only rely on the power of Conqueror Caecilius. Slowly, Caecilius drew his samurai sword. Xiao Liang looked disdainful. You seem strong, but I can replicate 50 of your power, multiplied by thousands. What do you have to fight me with? With a flick of his hand, tens of thousands of glass figures appeared. At this moment, Xiao Liang had already imagined himself rescuing these beautiful women. In a wave of gratitude, these women embraced him, entrusting him with their lifelong happiness. However, the time for fantasies was short-lived. Copy. Huh. Why can't I copy? The enemy is too strong, exceeding the copying ability of the glass man. No way. This is the first time this has happened. The conqueror, Caecilius, smirked wickedly. Are you saying to increase the numbers? Is that how it works? With a quick motion, Caecilius unleashed his shadow skill, splitting himself into three. Captain, I can't handle this. The leader of the Shamate team cursed, quickly summoning tens of thousands of armored tyrannosaurs. Fight him. Xiao Yang's glass man had no choice but to copy the leader's armored tyrannosaurs and charged forward together. Chapter 239, King of Close Combat. The General Executioner activates the Conqueror. Caecilius watched the thousands of massive battle dinosaurs charging towards him and couldn't help but laugh. Weak. Truly too weak. With lightning speed, he drew his katana, Nightshade Flow, motionless sword. Without any movement from his body, blood flowers erupted from the countless armored tyrannosaurs rushing at him, which were sliced to pieces. The Shamate leader had no idea what was happening. However, Xiao Liang, possessing the glass man, had a naturally strong perception ability and instantly understood what was happening. Run. We need to run. The Shamate leader slapped the back of Xiao Liang's head. Run? With a 20,000-3 advantage? It's in my favor. No, you might not see it, but I can sense the sword energy. This guy draws his sword incredibly fast, using the released sword energy to shred your armored dinosaurs. How is that possible? Before the leader could fully believe Xiao Yang's words, he saw Caecilius charging forward, knocking down enemies and swiftly drawing his sword to strike. Nightshade Flow. Remnant Heart Sword. This time, the opponent seemed to deliberately slow down, allowing the leader to see the previous shadowless sword technique clearly. In the next moment, on the path of Caecilius's charge, thousands of armored dinosaurs turned to fragments. Moreover, the attack wasn't even from his real body, but from his two shadows. This power. It's terrifying. In the distance, a group of beautiful women from the Eastern team gathered around Caecilius. The captain pointed at Xiao Liang and the Shamate leader. Two pathetic losers. Thinking they can pull off a hero saving the beauty act? You two are just like toads wanting to eat swan meat. Then, the captain's finger gently touched Caecilius. If we're talking about swan meat, it must be for Lord Caecilius to enjoy. To be honest, the words were too harsh. Clearly, the two spirited individuals, Xiao Liang and the leader of the Shamate group, had looks that were definitely superior to that of the so-called demon. However, in the battlefield of the myriad worlds, strength was paramount. If one lacked strength, they wouldn't even have the right to marry. It was truly disheartening. The two gritted their teeth, their fists clenched tightly. Yet they couldn't even muster the rage of incompetence. On the side of the floating island, engineers from the Rising Empire were introducing their latest development, the General Executioner. This super-strong robot belonged to the epic units of the Rising Empire in Red Alert. It only appeared on the map and could not be built. However, Subai particularly wanted it and could only commission the engineers to work overtime to produce it. Fortunately, with technology fully unlocked, although it took some effort to create this big guy, everything went smoothly. In the original game, the Rising Empire deployed it on the battlefield of Odessa, where the General Executioner gained fame by eliminating all enemies in the city. All commanders of the Empire honored the General Executioner with the title of Sword Saint. This gigantic robot stood about 20 stories high and was composed of 3 bodies. It wielded a massive wave energy blade, which could easily cut through any armor, ignoring any defenses. Additionally, the wave energy blade would generate a super energy destruction wave upon attack, annihilating long-range units like a sword's energy. The entire machine resembled a walking nuclear missile launcher, powerful and ferocious, yet clean and radiation-free. Furthermore, it had magnetic energy absorption capabilities, making it immune to any electromagnetic attacks, which would instead be absorbed and converted into counterattacks. This immunity to electrical properties granted it a specific invincible effect against certain unique enemies on the battlefield. However, Subai had not yet found a use for such a powerful robot. Just as he was admiring his oversized toy, 2 members from his teams sent him an urgent distress signal. It was the leader of the Shamate group and Xiaoyang. Had these two encountered danger? That shouldn't be the case. Not to mention that the leader's armored Tyrannosaurus was the only combination of ancient biological weaponry and high-tech armor he had ever seen, brutal and with extremely high defense. Xiaoyang's glass-like replication skill could copy anything he couldn't defeat, seemingly without issue. So why were they sending an urgent signal? Without overthinking, Su Bai agreed immediately. Although these two had previously tried to outsmart him, they were now behaving as obediently as dogs after messing things up. After all, it's inappropriate not to rescue a member of your own team. The army has withdrawn, and the Air Force is mobilizing, engaging the enemy while advancing. The floating island is flying quickly, and the accompanying aircraft are continuously detonating ahead, creating splashes like salutes welcoming the floating island. Congratulations to the demon teams Su Bai for successfully eliminating the Eagle clan and acquiring their ability, Eagle Eye. Note: all infantry units have their vision enhanced fivefold. In an instant, Su Bai felt his vision become clearer. Without any special equipment, he could see distant places with ease. It was exhilarating. He didn't expect some enemies were nesting in the clouds, and his flying units took them all out. This put Su Bai in a great mood. On the other side, Xiao Liang and the captain were trembling in fear, huddled together. Their 20,000 troops were almost completely wiped out. Moreover, the true main force of the enemy hadn't even made a move yet, only allowing his two afterimages to attack. If the real body made a move, how terrifying would that be? Su Bai? Captain Su Bai? Grandpa Su Bai? When are you coming to save us? A flash of white light appeared, and the ground was torn apart, creating a deep chasm several kilometers long. The two afterimages sheathed their swords, and nearly 2,000 soldiers were wiped out. It's over. This time, it's really over. At that moment, both of them regretted their choices deeply. They had heard that a word about desire can lead to disaster. Why did they follow these few Eastern female villains when they were already full? Otherwise, they wouldn't have ended up in such dire straits. But soon, a series of sonic booms echoed from the distance. The sound was massive and piercing, like thunder. Boom. In the sky, several Black Hawk fighter jets dropped 8 or 9 bombs. Simultaneously, a massive and shocking floating island drifted in, resembling a grand aerial palace, heavenly palace. The two afterimages sensed the crisis. Suddenly, they leaped up, drawing their swords. Both sides struck down simultaneously, creating a dazzling X-shaped slash in the air. Boom. The bombs dropped by the Black Hawk fighter jets exploded as they neared the ground. Enormous flames engulfed half the sky. The afterimage of Caecilius was also instantly consumed by the flames. He snorted coldly. This level of attack was hardly worth mentioning. At this moment, Su Bai commanded the floating island to land. Interesting, another melee fanatic. Chapter 240. The Clash of Samurai Swords, Weakened Flesh, Mechanical Ascension. Since that's the case, I might as well send some steel Ronins to test their swordsmanship. Guangong's blade against the samurai sword. Let's see who is stronger. Hundreds of steel Ronins charged out from the floating island. With both hands wielding a massive guandao, the moment it clashed with the katana, battle erupted instantly, filling the air with the thunderous sounds of metal colliding and energy surging. In a flash, the warrior moved like a ghost amidst the steel Ronin. The katana was light, yet deadly, each swing accompanied by a surge of magical energy, leaving behind brilliant trails of light and sparks. The steel Ronin, relying on their massive bodies and formidable strength, fought back fiercely with their guandao. The interplay of blades and shadows created a breathtaking scene. With a deadly strike, thousands of swords descended from the sky, landing on top of the steel Ronin. Their armor crumbled under the piercing blades, one by one falling down. Xiao Liang and the leader of the group finally spotted Su Bai arriving. The two, tears streaming down their faces, escaped to the floating island. Kneeling before Su Bai and clutching his legs tightly. "Captain, we missed you so much. You finally came. Get lost, don't cling to me." Su Bai kicked the two away and continued to observe the battlefield. As time passed, the situation became increasingly clear. The warrior was like a merciless reaper, each attack precise and lethal, breaking through the defense of the steel Ronin one by one. Finally, with a deafening roar, he delivered a decisive blow. The dazzling light of the blade cutting through the night sky, splitting the last steel Ronin in half. The battle was over, leaving only the solitary figure of the warrior standing on the battlefield. He remained there, his gaze deep and indifferent, as if the recent events were merely a trivial game. The female members of the Eastern Expedition team were already overjoyed. The apostle is truly formidable. Even the demon leader is no match for him. Please love me fiercely. I have given you my heart. The warrior pried the team members apart. You all set up the beds together and prepare the battlefield. Once I take down that floating island ahead, I'll fight you again. He walked towards Su Bai's floating island, accompanied by two shadowy figures, forming a triangular formation that exuded immense pressure. The group leader and Xiao Liang could hardly believe it. The invincible Su Bai had actually been defeated. Although the floating island was equipped with numerous defenses, the overwhelming pressure brought by the warrior made the two disregard the safety of the defenses, as if death were imminent. Captain, what should we do? The group leader's face was twisted in confusion, utterly at a loss. At that moment, Xiao Liang regained some clarity. He slapped the group leader across the face. Why the hell did you hit me? Wake up. Look at the captain. He not only shows no fear, but also reveals a strange smile. Huh, it really is. Where does his confidence come from? Su Bai stood up from the throne. With a wave of his hand, the floating island rose. Below, Cassius looked at the enemies above who were preparing to flee and couldn't help but laugh. He scanned his surroundings for his afterimages. 2 afterimages obeyed his command, leaping into the air, ready to use the X-slash on the massive floating island again. He was the strongest swordsman in the demon realm, and even when invited by various clans to attack humans on the battlefield, he scoffed at it. It felt utterly lacking in challenge. After all, humans could not provide him with any enjoyment in battle. He slowly sheathed his katana and turned to leave, walking towards the group of beautiful women from the Eastern team. But just then, a massive black shadow suddenly descended from the sky, crashing down to the ground with tremendous force. The size of this shadow was as enormous as the palm of a deity, astonishing all. Its appearance shook the entire space, as if the end of the world was imminent. As this black hand crashed down, the 2 afterimages that had just leaped were instantly suppressed to the ground. The tremendous impact caused the surrounding land to sink, forming a deep pit. Dust flew up, obscuring the view and making it impossible to see what was happening. Hearing the commotion, Cassius turned around sharply, his gaze fixed on the scene before him. There, a 3-headed, 6-armed monster appeared, holding an incredibly sharp katana, slowly drawing it from its waist. Every movement exuded a powerful pressure that instilled fear. What a strong presence. Interesting, Cassius murmured to himself. The appearance of this monster excited him, as he had finally found a worthy opponent to confront. He gripped his katana tightly again, preparing for the upcoming challenge. At the same time, the other 2 afterimages rushed towards the executioner from both sides. Together with Cassius, they formed an equilateral triangle attack formation. The 3 jumped together, ferociously like a pack of hungry wolves. However, in the face of their attack, the executioner activated the energy blade, effortlessly blocking all strikes one by one. The energy blade traced arcs in the air, producing crisp metallic clashing sounds. Then, with a casual wave, the executioner sent the energy blade flying out with powerful sword energy. Cassius barely dodged this strike, but the 2 afterimages underestimated the power of the sword energy. They didn't have time to escape the danger zone and were instantly struck down, dying on the spot. Such power. Even the women from the Eastern team were shocked. It was simply too strong. Is this the true power of the captain of the demon squad? Buzzing sounds filled the air as several massive energy waves were unleashed, instantly revealing to the women what the answer truly was. The second wave of attacks left deep gorges spanning dozens of kilometers across the ground, far surpassing the length a renowned warrior could achieve with their swift strikes. Once again, the energy blades continued to gather power. How could it be possible? Could the soldiers under the captain of the demon squad be heroes? Yet, they exhibited no aura of heroism at all. The renowned warrior was known as the strongest swordsman in the demon realm, and we had received countless reports about him from the battlefield. How could any team member challenge him? The warrior was gravely injured, spitting blood and wiping the stains from his mouth. He gripped his sword tightly with both hands. Nightshade Phantom Kill. This move was a signature technique he had used when challenging the former strongest swordsman in the demon realm. At that time, with just one strike, he had severed the connection between Silent City and the Black Volcano. Chapter 241. The General Executioner slashed in an instant. Su Bai achieved double critical hits. A city, a mountain, all were obliterated. Its might was unmatched. Moreover, this time, the conqueror had absorbed the essence of the previous strongest warrior's techniques, infusing it with immense thunderous power. Its destructive force was doubled. He believed this technique would not only annihilate the 3-headed, 6-armed mechanical warrior before him, but would also slice the floating island behind it in half. It was as easy as flipping a hand. Energy surged wildly into the sword, causing even his skin to appear loose and aged. The blade radiated dazzling lightning. The stones beneath his feet began to float due to the concentrated energy and imbalance of gravity. With a single slash, carrying countless thunderous forces, he struck down. The General Executioner hurriedly raised his energy blade to block, but it was too late. The thunderous power sliced through the massive mechanical body. The conqueror retracted his sword, a slight smile curling at the corner of his mouth. You are already dead. He eagerly awaited the moment to split the General Executioner and the floating island in two. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. The conqueror hesitated. Logically, by now, the opponent should have already been severed and starting to tilt slowly. Yet, the foe stood firm like a god, unmoving. After another 5 seconds, he swallowed hard. Crack. A look of joy finally appeared on his face. It was about to split apart. But then, the sound of the mechanical click was merely the sound made by the general's executioner raising the energy blade. At the same time, countless bolts of lightning began to gather on the energy blade. This surge of lightning shot up into the sky, dazzling and overwhelming. The conqueror, Caecilius, felt a pang of panic. Wasn't this lightning power the same force he had just unleashed? Could it be that the opponent could also use this technique? However, he had struck first. Even if the opponent could use this move, they should have been cut in half by now. Unless that robotic warrior absorbed the power he had just released and used it against him. The thought sent a chill down Caecilius's spine as he prepared to condense energy once more and unleash that strike, merging it with the opponent's technique. Only then could he safely evade this attack. Otherwise, no matter how fast he ran, he could never outrun his own technique. On the floating island, Subai took off his sunglasses. The captain and Xiao Liang beside him had already been blinded by the earlier lightning flash. The power of that strike had been truly overwhelming. Fortunately, the general's executioner was there to serve as a meat shield. Furthermore, it was even more absurd that the opponent was using the power of thunder, which was perfectly absorbed by the general's executioner. The earlier mountain-crushing force hitting him was effectively reduced to zero. Moreover, it was turned against the opponent by the general's executioner. Flash. The immense power of thunder mixed with the force of the super-energy wave surged forth. Su Bai's keen eyes watched the creature in the distance attempting to block this strike with its own power. It was like a mantis trying to stop a chariot. Laughably absurd. Such a foolish child. He wasn't afraid of being attacked. He was afraid of the opponent hiding and fleeing. The energy transformed into a sword aura, crashing forward with overwhelming force, carving a deep ravine into the ground for hundreds of meters. Countless stones and gravel were pulverized into dust. Even the eternal night sky was illuminated, dispersing the war fog for hundreds of kilometers around. Seconds later, everything returned to calm. Congratulations to the Demon Squad's Su Bai for successfully eliminating the Phantom Clan and acquiring the abilities of the Flying Phantom Clan. Weakness identified. Note, after gaining this ability, the entire squad has a 30% chance of delivering a fatal blow, dealing 500 damage to enemies. Indeed, a strong individual. The ability to plunder was also quite powerful. Su Bai's critical strike rate, which had originally accumulated to 60, now directly increased to 90. With this, he could essentially achieve a critical hit with every strike. Moreover, the critical damage had also risen, reaching nearly 1,000. The members of the Eastern women's team stared in awe at the scene before them, their mouths agape once more. I can hardly believe everything in front of me. Just moments ago, the conqueror Caecilius unleashed his devastating power. That blow could definitely destroy a major city. And the strike made by Su Bai could obliterate 10 such cities. Is the gap between the conqueror Caecilius and the demon team captain Su Bai really this vast? The thought is chilling. This level of strength absolutely surpasses the entire Divine Alliance. I just wonder if the captain of the Central Region team, Zhengya, can catch up with him. The floating island slowly descended once again. Xiao Liang and the leader of the Shamate group walked down like triumphant generals, heads held high. You shameless bitches. Instead of being human, you act like ghosts. You bunch of vile creatures, trying to find a real ghost to scare people, huh? The two of them cursed loudly, merely expressing their impotent rage after being humiliated earlier. Su Bai walked down from the floating island and looked at the group of women in front of him. They were indeed all exceptionally beautiful. Unfortunately, there was no opportunity for a free duel here. Otherwise, he would definitely punish these women properly. Being human but acting like this was truly unexpected. Suddenly, this group of women surrounded Su Bai. Captain, we just want a child. Yes, that so-called apostle is too weak, and his body isn't as strong as yours. You should understand our difficulties, right? Xiao Liang exclaimed, Leader, what the hell? Why are they so eager? Not even a shred of dignity. Seeing the strong, they immediately fawned over him. It truly reflected their character. The key was that they were also victors. Why weren't they surrounding the two of us instead? Their mood was a mix of disappointment and frustration. They were both angry and helpless, hating these women for having no morals. Even more, they despised the fact that these immoral women showed no decency in front of them. Having rescued his two team members, Su Bai felt great. Not only did he gain critical attributes, but he also found new inspiration for the general's executioner skills. The enemy's so-called nightmare demon face kill was indeed domineering and treacherous. After continuous calculations by the engineer, it was determined that as long as 10 magnetic energy tanks were positioned to charge the general's executioner, they could unleash such skills as well. There was nothing more satisfying than this. After parting with those 10 female team members, Xiao Liang, and the leader, the floating island took off, moving to recharge. Su Bai issued the command to charge the general's executioner with the magnetic energy tanks. With the gene lock now activated, the magnetic energy tanks could move and attack simultaneously. keeping pace with the charging process. They could be considered moving power banks. The advanced magnetic energy tank has finally found its place on the battlefield. In Chapter 242, the General Executioner absorbs the enemy's tactics and swiftly eliminates hundreds of thousands of foes. At the edge of the Great Wall of the 10,000 Realms, all team members gather together. The leaders of each team look at Zhengya. Zhengya, as the leader of the Divine Alliance, you haven't fully utilized the strength of our teams. Right now, our points are still behind the Demon team. The captain of the East America team raises an objection. Soon after, the Indiana team expresses some dissatisfaction as well. It's ridiculous that our team has suffered heavy casualties, and as the leader, you haven't provided timely rescue, allowing the Demon team to make a mockery of us. Other Alliance teams also voice their complaints. After all this, it seems you're not fit for the role. If you can't handle it, we should immediately find someone else. I think the captain of the Central America representative team would be a good fit for the position. The other members of the Central team are quite indignant. One of them waves their hand, causing a swarm of blood crows to darken the skies. What? Planning a rebellion? Instantly, the others fall silent. Some members of this person's Blood Crow team have experienced her power firsthand. In a previous battle, she single-handedly defeated several bosses, leaving them as mere bones afterward. Her strength is indeed formidable. Xiao Zhao, don't be impulsive. Zhengya tells his teammates to stand down. He scans the crowd and adds, everyone, there's no need to panic. Since I've organized the Divine Alliance, we must work together for a big score. He spreads out a map and points to a specific location, tapping on it. This place is quite special according to previous intel. Once we solidify our base's defenses, everyone assemble. We will eliminate this threat. I believe that by then, the points for each of our teams will surpass those of the Demon team. With this, everyone has no more objections. After all, the earlier complaints were merely venting. Among all the teams, the Central team is still the strongest, especially their captain, Zhengya. The last time they saw him in action, it was rumored he could summon gods. That was quite some time ago, and now, he has yet to take action, leaving everyone curious about how strong he has become. Meanwhile, Xiao Liang and the Shamate team leader watch the floating island disappear into the distance. Their teeth clenched and faces filled with a mix of envy, jealousy, and resentment. They realize that they have unwittingly put themselves in a vulnerable position, and thankfully, Subai arrived just in time to save them. Otherwise, they would have perished long ago. However, the spoils that Guy obtained are too good. They didn't get any for themselves, and just thinking about the team's loot sends chills down their spines. But there's nothing they can do, in their eyes. The captain of the Demon team is a true godlike figure. No one can surpass Subai. It's a well-deserved reputation. Forget it, let's go? That's right. Good things are not meant for us. Just after saying that, the members of the team from a certain region were kicked off the floating island one by Subai. You can't be so heartless. Oh, how can you change your mind so quickly? Don't treat me like this, darling. The two were taken aback. Wow, Subai is really quick to turn against people. But then they thought, doesn't this give us another opportunity? The two exchanged glances and showed each other wicked smiles, then rushed towards the spot where the members of that team landed. Subai on the floating island had no time to flirt or joke around with these women. After all, they were from a rival region. He had no intention of leaving anything for them, so he acted heartlessly and turned against them, giving each one a solid kick. After all, the reconnaissance unit ahead discovered another stronghold of various races. A massive cannon fired first, striking the face of the leader of the opposing faction with overwhelming force. The leader's face shattered, causing tons of damage. Xiao Liang and the captain, who were rushing towards the group of women, froze in place again. Wow, isn't Subai tired? Is he starting to bombard other races again? Is this an attack on the Great Wall of the multiverse, or is Subai hunting down other races? It feels a bit like turning the tables. Meanwhile, the recently landed members of the team from that region also looked reluctant. Sigh, we are fated to have no connection with the strong ones. Another massive cannon fired, and one of the leader's arms was instantly shattered. He could only flee in a panic. Instantly, all the eggs of the opposing faction in the territory hatched. Countless strange beings formed a giant mound of flesh, releasing various evil spells while blocking the cannon's attacks. Unexpectedly, this evil race had a remarkably strong reproductive capability. Moreover, these beings were undaunted, fiercely protecting their queen like soldier ants. The mound of flesh kept growing taller, forming a huge collective group, and the power of the dark magic they released became increasingly formidable. Flying troops and various air combat units found it impossible to approach. However, this power did not last long. Suddenly, a huge sound echoed as energy blades scraped the ground, coming from afar. The Night Reaper strikes. A massive white light flashed over. Boom. The mound of flesh composed of hundreds of thousands of enemies was instantly reduced to dust. Subai was immediately delighted. This powerful current sword energy annihilated over 100,000 foes in an instant, reminding him of the scene from his childhood when he used a lighter to electrocute ants. The ant was electrocuted on the spot. However, this time the current was stronger. This wave of monstrous creatures, resembling ants, left nothing but bones behind. The power of the attack was truly astonishing. I hope to have the chance to enter the demon realm in the future. Perhaps I could even teach AI stronger techniques. That blow not only annihilated over 100,000 enemies, but also took down the demon lord. The power was explosive. Congratulations to the demon team, Subai, for successfully eliminating the demon clan and plundering their abilities to spawn. Note, when a biological unit dies, it will lay an egg, which will hatch into a demon to fight for you after 1 minute. This is limited to animal-type units. Subai was amused. So it actually lays eggs? Thinking about the funny scene of a mobilized soldier crying out for their mother at the moment of death, only to lay an egg and truly become a mother. However, this scenario wouldn't occur. There was an additional note, limited to animal types. It seems the soldiers wouldn't have to suffer the pain of childbirth. In the distance, the dead demon lord had also produced an enormous egg, as large as a mountain. The surface of the egg was pulsating with mucus, indicating that something inside was still alive. All firepower was aimed and ready to fire, just as Subai gave the order. All the artillery hadn't fully turned into position when the creature inside the mountain-sized egg broke free. Roar! You dare to destroy my demon clan. I, the demon king, will take revenge. Subai couldn't help but laugh. Wow, they sent the little ones to deal with the older ones. This time, it was the little ones giving birth to the older ones. Chapter 243. Obtaining a long-awaited mysterious treasure chest, the strength of the beast man upgrades again. Indeed, there are all kinds of peculiar races in this world. The demon king before him wielded a giant axe, flames emanating from it. With a physique as robust as a mountain, it was covered in hard, bony armor, incredibly tough. It was clearly much stronger than the demon lord. Subai attempted to detect the attributes of the opponent and succeeded. Demon king, strength, 12,000, agility, 8,000, defense, 8,000, health, 5 million skills, path of flames. Charge strike, skill 1 note. The demon king leaves a 2-kilometer wide hellfire on the path it walks, dealing 2,000 damage per second to enemies within the fire. Skill 2 note. The demon king raises its giant axe for a charged strike, dealing 18 times its strength and damage. Now, Subai couldn't find any amusement in the situation. Unexpectedly, the strength of this demon king was extraordinary. Should he use super weapons to deal with it? Or should I let my demon king team up with the general executioner to deal with him? Before Subai could figure out his next move, the opponent had already charged at him. The 3 eyes of the general executioner suddenly emitted a destructive red light, as if entering a berserk mode. 6 arms moved with agility, and 3 energy blades traced brilliant blue arcs in the air, intertwining like 3 bolts of lightning as they pounced towards the demon king. The demon king swung a giant axe, leaving dark cracks in the air as the axe blade clashed violently with the blue light of the energy blades, creating dazzling flashes and deafening roars. The speed and power of the attacks from both sides exceeded Subai's imagination. Every clash of weapons sent massive sparks flying. Even the assembled members of the Divine Alliance, preparing to set off in another direction, saw distant flickers of light. Everyone swallowed hard. What kind of intense battle was happening far away? The impact was so vast. They hoped they wouldn't encounter it. Taking advantage of its 3 heads and 6 arms, the general executioner dealt 3 times the damage with each attack. Meanwhile, the demon king, relying on its incredible strength and mastery of axe techniques, struggled to withstand this lethal onslaught. However, as time passed, the demon king gradually showed signs of fatigue, and the swing of the giant axe became slower and slower. At that moment, the general executioner seized the opportunity. It leapt high, all 3 heads and 6 arms exerting force simultaneously, as 3 energy blades converged into an unstoppable torrent, cleaving towards the demon king. Though the demon king tried its utmost to resist, it ultimately could not withstand this overwhelming force. With a piercing wail, its body was split in 2, blood and demonic energy splattering everywhere, and it finally collapsed to the ground. Incredible, beyond Subai's imagination. The general executioner, in a 1-on-1, could deal damage that was effectively tripled. Otherwise, the two would continue battling, and the general executioner wouldn't be able to completely suppress the demon king. After killing the opponent, Subai received another notification from the main god. Congratulations to Demon Team Subai for successfully eliminating a high-ranking member of the demon race and acquiring the ability Path of Flames. Note, all hatch demons carry the ability Path of Flames, leaving a trail of fire behind them. Enemies standing on the path will take 2,000 damage per second. Subai was suddenly overjoyed. Previously, the demons he could hatch were at most some cannon fodder, akin to having an extra life from his undead race to participate in battles, but with average power. However, with this skill, the overall damage would increase exponentially. Just thinking about it, after the death of his own spirit spider, A reverse demon was born from it. Subsequently, hellfire erupted beneath its feet, and it charged forward, creating a wall of fire in its wake. If there were 1,000 such reverse demons charging in formation, the entire battlefield would be filled with countless walls of fire. This would serve as an effective attack method, whether for offense or defense. The commander discovered a treasure chest on the corpse of the reverse demon king, and his subordinates were mobilized to report this. Subai was taken aback. It had been a long time since he had seen a treasure chest. Or rather, the equipment obtained from ordinary treasure chests was of no significance to him, so he usually ignored them. He did not expect that this reverse demon king would also drop a treasure chest. Bring it up to me. A chest engraved with the emblems of countless races was brought forward. This chest was completely different from any he had seen before. It emanated a deathly aura of magic, something Subai could only perceive after gaining power. Upon opening the chest, a giant axe appeared before him. Dragon-slaying axe, race sacred artifact, one-time item. Can be equipped for a specific troop type. Attack power, 2000, skill, charge strike, skill description, raise the giant axe to charge a strike, dealing 18 times the strength and damage. As a race sacred artifact, it should have been obtained after defeating a high-level race or its superior. Previously, he had eliminated some races, but they could only be considered minor entities in the vast battlefield. Otherwise, how could he not have received a single treasure chest? Thinking of this, Subai felt a surge of excitement. It seemed that even stronger races awaited him. He chose to use it on the troop type, Frenzied Beastmen. If he didn't use it on the Frenzied Beastmen, he would have to give it to his undead troop type, the Malicious Fatty. However, that creature was clumsy and foolish, nowhere near as ferocious as the Frenzied Beastmen. Adding an axe would increase their damage by 2,000 points, effectively doubling their combat power. Looking at the thousands of Frenzied Beastmen in his stone sea, each wielding a giant axe, it resembled the posture of the Hulk with an axe. Perhaps these Frenzied Beastmen would develop in that direction in the future, Subai thought with anticipation. In the distance of the myriad realms, they arrived at the Iron Blood Demon Palace, as indicated on the map. Countless demon armies emerged from here. Zheng Ye gazed at the massive black palace before him and said, "Look at that enormous palace filled with an aura of evil." The others followed his gaze and indeed saw a gigantic palace brimming with sinister energy. The palace towers into the clouds, surrounded by a dense aura of magic that creates a feeling of oppression and fear. Is this the Iron Blood Magic Palace? It looks truly terrifying, exclaimed one team member. Everyone be cautious. Various dangers may be lurking here. We must remain vigilant and be ready to respond to any emergencies. Zheng Ye reminded them. Understood. The group nodded in agreement, indicating they would follow orders. Then, Zheng Ye led them to open the gates of the magic palace. As they progressed, they encountered many powerful magical creatures, all of which were defeated through their combined efforts. Chapter 244, Justice from the Heavens. Athena's orbital ray vehicle unleashes its power after an intense battle. They finally arrived at the location Zheng Ye had mentioned. At this moment, everyone let out a sigh of relief, their faces showing signs of fatigue. Finally, we made it, someone exclaimed. Yes, but the real challenge is just beginning, another person replied. Zheng Ye looked around and said to everyone, "Now, let's begin summoning all our troops." Upon hearing Zheng Ye's words, everyone began to summon their respective forces. Bright lights flashed, and over 1,000,000 troops appeared before them. Some wielded long spears, some carried massive swords, and others rode giant beasts, exuding a formidable presence. Meanwhile, Zheng Ye summoned his own troops of thousands of cultivators. These cultivators stood on flying swords, radiating a golden light, as if celestial beings had descended. Their appearance shocked everyone present. Wow, so many cultivators. Someone gasped. Are these Captain Zheng's troops? Incredible. Another person remarked. Zheng Ye smiled slightly and shouted to everyone, "Let's engage." With Zheng Ye's command, the 1,000,000-strong army surged toward the Iron Blood Magic Palace like a tidal wave. Their morale was high, and the battle cries were deafening. Zheng Ye walked through the air, followed by a group of cultivators. These cultivators formed hand seals and chanted spells. Suddenly, countless flying swords materialized behind them, arranged densely in formation. 10,000 sword technique. Zheng Ye shouted, and the cultivators immediately launched their attack. Countless flying swords rained down on the Iron Blood Magic Palace, instantly scattering the magical creatures within. Progress was remarkably smooth. After a 10-minute break, we will enter the first level of the Underground Magic Palace. Meanwhile, Subai continued to search for the extermination of the myriad races. However, a request came from the Great Wall of the Myriad Realms. Master, all other team members have left, and the camp is unguarded. Their command has become chaotic over there. It seems the enemy's attack has intensified. Can we return to assist? Subai was speechless. Since entering the battlefield of the Myriad Realms, he felt like a firefighter, extinguishing fires everywhere. Now, other team members were seemingly abandoning their posts. What exactly are they trying to do? Understood. Two Tanyas were called over by Su Bai at the same time. One is Tanya from Red Alert 2, and the other is Tanya from Red Alert 3. Master, you called for me. Master, you called for me. They spoke in unison. There was no difference. Their tones and accents were identical. The only distinction was that the third generation had an additional time-traveling belt. There were quite a few instances where Tanya from the third generation impersonated the second generation to go on dates with Su Bai. Even more absurdly, the second generation Tanya also impersonated the third generation Tanya for dates with Su Bai. It seemed the two had reached a mutual alliance, to the point where even Su Bai couldn't tell them apart. You must ensure that the Allied forces sent back to the original defense of the Myriad Realm's Great Wall are absolutely foolproof. Understood. Understood. In a certain void within the battlefield of the Myriad Realms, a pair of sinister eyes was watching everything. Hee. How foolish of the humans to fall into the trap without realizing it. This is perfect for me to kill two birds with one stone. Under the Great Wall of the Myriad Realms, Han Li was struggling to hold the defense. Although the defensive positions left by the Divine Alliance were solid, most of the troops had been taken away when they left. This resulted in having defenses without anyone to guard them. She could only split her over 10,000 troops to take over those defensive positions. However, this division of forces highlighted the inadequacy of her defenses even more. Thus, she touched the hidden soldier ring in her hand and summoned all the over 10,000 allied soldiers that Su Bai had prepared for her. The peacekeeping troops entered various defensive facilities, the spearmen took position in the trenches, and the guardian tanks were dispersed for defense. Finally, there was the ultimate weapon left for Han Li by Su Bai, 200 Athena artillery vehicles. These were high-tech war machines from the Allied camp in Red Alert 3, on par with the V-4 rocket launchers of the Soviet Union and the energy tanks of the Rising Sun Empire. By locking onto targets with lasers, they transmitted coordinate data to the orbital satellite, allowing the solar energy-absorbing orbital cannons to fire high-energy rays at designated targets, causing immense damage. Their power was astonishing, though the downside was the slow attack frequency and speed. However, this was already the most powerful siege unit under Han Li's command. Attack from all 10 tribes. The Apollo solar chariots under Han Li reported the latest enemy situation in front and prepared to lure the enemy to point A. Yes, with Han Li's command, 300 Spartan legions acted according to her instructions, leading countless monsters from various realms to the Hot Springs Pass. The Hot Springs Pass, the last advantageous terrain before the Great Wall of the Myriad Realms, became the focal point of this fierce battle. Above the Hot Spring Pass, the Athena artillery was already prepared, quietly waiting for the perfect moment. Aim. Fire. With the command given, half a minute later, a massive beam of light descended from the sky. Like a burning meteor, it struck the entrance of the Hot Spring Pass in an instant. This laser, like a sword of judgment, melted the sandstone of the surface into glass, the intense heat rendering everything incredibly fragile. Thousands of enemy troops, caught off guard, were instantly vaporized by the high temperature, leaving only scorched traces behind. The remaining over 50 Spartan warriors raised their spears high and shouted deafeningly, "This is Sparta." However, the battle was not over. Just then, the sky shifted once again, and the orbital cannon descended with divine retribution. This time, it was not one but 10 beams of light that struck directly into the enemy formation. These beams were like a storm of destruction, instantly vaporizing tens of thousands of enemy soldiers, their bodies disappearing in the light as if they had never existed. Han Li watched the scene before her, finally letting out a sigh of relief. They had managed to hold them off. Yet, the situation on the battlefield changed once more. In the distance, an overwhelming number of enemy troops waved their wings in the sky while simultaneously opening their mouths. Subsonic energy attack. The sudden targeting was directed at Han Li. She thought to herself, "I was careless. This time, I'm done for." At that moment, the Athena artillery suddenly deployed a massive protective force field, instantly neutralizing the previous attack. Han Li felt a lingering fear. She had actually survived. What she didn't know was that this was the second skill of the Athena artillery, absorbing energy from the orbital satellites to create a defensive shield, achieving a temporary invincible effect. However, there was a drawback. As the energy weakened, the protective shield would shrink until it disappeared. Chapter 245, Freezing Helicopter Shrink Mode. Breaking the enemy's weakness. The freezing helicopter teamed up with Icarus to take out these flying units. The Birdman Icarus, armed with a spear, collaborated with Su Bai's freezing helicopter to continuously eliminate the incoming enemies. Han Li quickly utilized Su Bai's troops to regain control of the battlefield. But just then, an alarm sounded from the rear. The Divine Alliance base was under attack from the enemy's rear. Han Li couldn't believe it. How could this be? This was clearly one of the most crucial points near the Wanjie Great Wall. As long as they held this position, the enemy couldn't possibly break through. Before she could figure out what was happening, she saw a gigantic worm soaring into the sky. A giant worm. In an instant, Han Li realized what was happening. The enemy had executed a clever strategy, feigning an attack on the hot spring pass while secretly advancing through the back. In fact, a giant worm was used to dig a tunnel underground, allowing the troops to directly infiltrate the center of the Celestial Alliance's base. Otherwise, some of their own forces, along with peacekeeping soldiers, could have held the position for a long time. At this moment, Han Li gritted his teeth. It was meaningless to hold the hot spring pass any longer. The only option was to abandon this place and make a final stand beneath the Great Wall of All Realms. Retreat the entire army. On the other side, within the iron-blooded demon palace of the Celestial Alliance, they had already penetrated the 8th level of the demon palace. Captain Zheng Ye was impressive, having directly annihilated 1,000,000 enemies with his cultivators. It was said that the human troops were weak, but Captain Zheng's soldiers had likely reached the transformation realm, invincible. It seemed that flattening the 18 levels of the iron-blooded demon palace would be a matter of moments. At that moment, the team member responsible for mental communication, the stunningly beautiful Zhan Lan, suddenly jolted. A layer of fine sweat appeared on her forehead. Captain, the scout I left at the base reports that the enemy is launching a fierce attack on the Great Wall of All Realms. It seems they have gathered a large army. Captain Zheng Ye froze for a moment, then furrowed his brows. This shouldn't be happening. When I left with everyone, we had already cleared out over 100 of the myriad races. The enemy's attack intensity had clearly decreased. Those scattered troops shouldn't even be able to approach within 50 kilometers of the base. Why are they suddenly intensifying their assault? Could it be that they sensed our departure and took the opportunity to steal the crystals? But having already breached the 8th level of the underground palace, should they go back? Suddenly, he thought of Subai. The demon team could hold off the myriad races with just one squad. It's hard to say. Experience told him not to place all his hopes on one person. Withdraw the troops. Everyone returned to defend the Great Wall of All Realms. Although the other team members were reluctant, Captain Zheng Ye was leaving. If they didn't follow, what use would it be? After all, attacking the iron-blooded demon city was like holding on to his coattails. They all returned to the entrance on the 1st level. At that moment, the main door inexplicably closed. They don't want us to go back? Zheng Ye snorted coldly, striking out with his right hand to shatter the void. With a loud bang, Zheng Ye stepped back 2 paces. Captain, can't we open it? The assassin Sakura in the team looked puzzled, although Zheng Ye had only taken 2 steps back. The friction between the ground and Zheng Ye had actually created a smooth mirror-like surface. It could be said that the power of that punch was astonishing. However, due to the reaction force, Zheng Ye was pushed back. Had it been an ordinary person, they would have been blasted away like a cannonball. It seems the door is protected by a barrier. At that moment, a hoarse voice came from deep within the underground palace. The gate has been fortified with a powerful barrier by me. If you want to return to save the Great Wall of All Realms, then come to the depths of the underground palace and kill me. Ha 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 ha. Zhan Lan clutched his chest, fist clenched. Captain, we've fallen for a distraction tactic. Zheng Ye nodded. It seems we must deal with the Demon King in the depths of the underground palace before we can escape. Zheng Ye then looked at everyone. It appears we must break through the Iron Blood Demon Palace. All units, follow my command. Advance to the deepest part of the Iron Blood Demon Palace. Under the Great Wall of All Realms, hundreds of giant worms rolled out from beneath the ground, gnawing at the hard foundation and leaving it riddled with holes. Han Li was already in a state of panic. These giant worms were not only enormous and difficult to deal with, but their bodies were also covered with steel spikes, continuously shooting down approaching troops. Even the Guardian tanks could be pierced through. What should we do? Is the Great Wall of All Realms really going to fall? Subai? Why haven't you come yet? Suddenly, a cloud of dust stirred in the distance. 2 blonde women with big waves were standing on top of the Guardian tank and the Grizzly tank, waving towards them. Hi baby, we're over here. Han Li's eyes lit up. These 2 are Subai's heroes. We're saved. One of them, Tanya, pointed at the frozen helicopter in the sky. Switch the frozen helicopter to shrink mode. Huh. After a couple of seconds of shock, Han Li finally reacted. She immediately checked the helicopter's abilities. Sure enough, there was a shrinking ray as Tanya indicated. All frozen helicopters, change mode. As this command was issued, all the frozen helicopters began to alter their state and mode. Their originally cold exterior gradually became heated. Strong, uniform residual interactive neutron energy beams shot out from the frozen helicopters. These powerful energy beams intertwined in the air, forming a dense net. Every 5 frozen helicopters formed a group, their beams converging to create a formidable force. In just half a minute, those enormous worms quickly shrank in front of this powerful force. Their once gigantic bodies became even smaller than the Guardian tanks. As a result, the steel spikes fired by the worms could no longer penetrate the tanks. Han Li let out a sigh of relief. It seems she still didn't know Subai well enough. She should find an opportunity to ask him about the special functions of other troops when they were together. In the distance, the 2 Tanyas exchanged smiles. The third generation Tanya said with a grin. How about a competition to see who can defeat more enemies? Okay, let us go. The second generation Tanya happily agreed. However, the Guardian tank has already dominated the internal competition. Isn't it a bit unfair for you to lead the Grizzly tank? Otherwise, should I let you rush in and kill for half an hour first? The second generation Tanya sneered. Forget it, with your peacekeeping soldiers, they're utterly ineffective. They can't compare to my ordinary soldiers inside the battle fortress. It's uncertain who will come out on top. Fine, I want to let you have it. Having said that, the third generation Tanya took the lead. She jumped down from the Guardian tank and joined the battle, leading by example. Meanwhile, the second generation Tanya had already commanded the Grizzly tanks to crush several of the shrunk giant worms. Chapter 246, Catastrophe. The Frozen Legion blocks the breach at that moment. The ground suddenly began to shake. Following that, dozens of wide earthquake cracks opened up like fierce jaws. In an instant, many tanks and infantry were swallowed up. Boom. Accompanied by a thunderous roar, a pair of massive pincers emerged from the ground, shimmering with dazzling light, as if gathering endless energy. Then, the pincers swung violently, releasing two immensely powerful shockwaves. These shockwaves hit the barrier of the all-world Great Wall like ferocious beasts, and with a loud bang, the barrier shattered, the starlight dimming instantly. A section of the all-world Great Wall was also destroyed because of this. Charge. Rush in from here. Eliminate countless humans from parallel universes. In the next moment, hundreds of thousands of enemies surged toward the breach, eager to flood into the human world. The one behind all this is the Lord of the Lobster Clan, the Scissorhand Blood Beast. He belongs to a superior race among the myriad of races. He dominates many smaller races. His strength is terrifying. Even the Great Wall barrier can be destroyed by him. However, in this crystal stealing operation, the Scissorhand Blood Beast is just one of the pawns. The race controlling everything behind the scenes is even more mysterious and terrifying. Athena Artillery, target the breach and fire in unison. The third generation Tanya waved her hand, directing the Athena cannons to aim at the breach and fire satellite lasers. Beam after beam rained down, annihilating most of the monsters rushing into the human world. They barely managed to hold them back for a while. On the other side, the second generation Tanya led the armored forces to restrain the enemy's advance from both sides, like floodwaters blocked by a dam. However, they still couldn't stop the enemies from pouring into the human world in a panic. At that moment, another special army sent by Subai arrived. This was the Frozen Legion from the moment of uprising. The high-ranking soldiers from the Allied camp came from the Frozen Legion plan developed by a future technology company. The Frozen Legion used a semi-fixed frost gun. The Absolute Zero released by the frost gun seemed capable of freezing time and space, able to freeze all things in the world. A large force arrived this time, numbering over 1,000 troops. They lined up neatly and disembarked from the combat fortress in an orderly manner. Immediately, they wielded frost guns and began freezing the monsters that surged forward one after another. Under the powerful freezing force of Absolute Zero, countless monsters instantly turned into crystal-clear ice sculptures. At that moment, Commander Tanya decisively ordered, "Jump." Upon receiving the command, the soldiers of the Freezing Legion quickly activated the jetpacks on their backs, and the powerful thrust propelled them off the ground and into the air. They adjusted their positions mid-air and suddenly dove downward. The warriors of the Freezing Legion fully utilized the weight of their armor, crashing down like heavy artillery shells onto the frozen enemies below. With a series of crisp cracking sounds, the ice-sculpted monsters shattered into countless ice shards. This single jumping attack successfully eliminated over 1,000 enemies, showcasing astonishing combat power. They continued to freeze and jumped again, taking down thousands more enemies. Witnessing the ferocious fighting strength of the Freezing Legion, Han Li let out a sigh of relief. The gap had finally been closed. However, amidst the fierce battle, he overlooked a message sent by the deities. Detection of various races entering the human world. All efforts are required to block, otherwise, the number of monsters entering the human world will exceed 10,000, annihilating all team members. Current escaped monster count, 251 for 110,000. In the next moment, cold sweat drenched Han Li's entire body. Thankfully, they arrived just in time. Even Su Bai was enraged. The scissor-handed blood beast must be torn to pieces. At the same time, after realizing its attack had failed, the scissor-handed blood beast finally emerged from underground. Its body was covered by a hard shell, and its enormous pincers resembled two sharp scissors, making it look like a giant crab, rampaging with dominance. With a roar, this monster appeared before everyone. It stood over 1,000 meters tall, incredibly massive, leaving everyone in shock. It was this size that allowed it to break through the barrier of the multiverse wall with ease. Faced with such a colossal creature, everyone felt a sense of fear and astonishment. However, Subai smiled. Looking at the monster before him, he jested, Are we having roasted crab or steamed crab today? After saying this, Subai waved his hand, gathering all the freezing helicopters on the battlefield together and concentrated their fire to attack the giant monster with a shrinking beam. Let me show you how to destroy the multiverse wall today. The two massive pincers continued to gather powerful energy, preparing to shatter the barrier. However, the speed of the frozen helicopter piloted by Subai was slightly faster. Before the opponent could unleash their powerful force, it was reduced to a height of a few hundred meters, shrinking by more than 10 times. With a single strike, two energy beams, carrying unparalleled might, crashed into the barrier of the world wall like two meteors. There were two deafening booms that shook the entire world. However, as soon as these two powerful energies made contact with the world wall, their strength suddenly diminished, as if suppressed by an invisible force. The world wall stood firm without any sign of wavering, its massive and sturdy walls resembling an insurmountable fortress, solid as a rock. How dare you cast a curse on me? As the claw swung, countless orbs of light burst forth like rain, rushing towards the frozen helicopter in the sky. These light orbs exploded in midair, creating a dazzling display that enveloped everything around. The sounds of explosions rang out one after another, flames shooting into the sky, and several frozen helicopters fell under the barrage of attacks. At that moment, however, a sudden sharp pain hit the top of his head, extending all the way down to his feet, making it nearly unbearable. This intense pain felt like thousands of steel needles piercing his body, causing him immense suffering. It turned out to be the satellite laser emitted by the distant Athena cannon. Damn it! The Scissorhand Blood Beast roared in anger, his voice echoing through the skies. He swung his arm fiercely, stirring up a violent whirlwind of dust and stones, before quickly burrowing underground. The surface was left with a deep crack stretching for dozens of kilometers, as if the earth had been torn open with a savage wound. Seizing this opportunity, he swiftly fled, vanishing without a trace. Chapter 247, Proton Collider, Activate. How infuriating. I was so close to entering the world wall and becoming the master of humanity. The Scissorhand Blood Beast felt a deep sense of unwillingness. Yet, there was nothing he could do. He wondered if the Iron Blood Demon Palace had succeeded in their ambush against humanity. Meanwhile, Subai continued his advance, standing atop the floating island and gazing into the distance. He noticed that soil and rocks were being thrown into the air in the southeast, as if a giant creature was emerging from underground. A smile involuntarily appeared on his face. Could this be the Scissorhand Blood Beast that had just vanished from the spy satellite? Initially thinking that he had escaped, he was surprised to find him again. Was this a stroke of luck or misfortune? With a slight smirk, Subai immediately commanded the floating giant island to halt its advance, watching as the giant insect fully emerged from the ground. They were already prepared for the attack. Meanwhile, on the 12th floor of the Iron Blood Demon Palace, Zhengya and others received the news that the world wall had been breached. News of many monsters entering the human world spread, causing a wave of tension. Some people's faces turned ashen, fearing that failure would lead to annihilation by the supreme deity. Even Captain Zhengya of the Central Continent team furrowed his brows. Next to him, the assassin Xiao Zhao sheathed his daggers and patted Zhengya on the shoulder. Captain, I believe with the strength of the demon squad leader, we should be able to hold our ground. You don't need to worry too much. Zhengya nodded. Distracting himself with these thoughts would only slow down their progress. At this moment, someone in the team exclaimed, "Look at the walls of the underground palace. They're all oozing black blood." The group immediately tensed again. Indeed, on the edges of the walls on this level, a thick black liquid was seeping out, emitting a pungent stench. Soon, the viscous liquid began to gather and merge, standing up and transforming into black blood creatures. Everyone, prepare for defense. Summon the troops. Captain Zhengya shouted. The million-strong army gathered once more. While these monsters are still incomplete, we must crush them in their cradle. In an instant, the battlefield was filled with the sound of war drums. Fierce cavalry surged like a tide, and various weapons intertwined to form a deadly net, ruthlessly attacking the blood creatures. However, these blood creatures displayed astonishing vitality. Even when defeated, they could quickly restore themselves, as if they were immortal. Some close combat soldiers splattered blood on themselves, and that blood seeped through their skin into their bodies. Suddenly, the soldiers' eyes were filled with bloodshot veins, and their tempers flared, leading them to attack their comrades. The battlefield descended into chaos and mutual slaughter. Many team members desperately ran toward the center, shouting, "The more we fight, the more there are. The enemy keeps multiplying." Captain Zhengya, think of a way. At the same time, the Scissorhand Blood Beast also noticed Subai's army. As a representative of the insect race among all beings, he showed no fear in the face of Subai's massive floating island. Moreover, after being hit by a shrinking beam earlier, the energy of the ray had now dissipated, returning him to a height of over 100 meters, restoring his abilities. Roar! How dare a human wander alone? I admire your courage. Surrender. and I can grant you a quick death. Subai's response was, if you surrender to me, I might just find you some insect queens for breeding. And you'll become my slave. You little brat. I am a high-ranking member of the insect race, commanding all insect beings across the realms. You have quite the audacity. Aren't you afraid of your own tongue getting tied in the wind? The Scissorhand Blood Beast was taken aback by Subai's confidence, daring to engage in verbal sparring with him. Truly reckless. He shook his body, and countless parasites leaped out, flying towards the floating giant island, intending to swallow Subai whole. However, Subai was already fully prepared. To deal with these massive creatures, he needed to escalate his own firepower. Proton Collision Cannon. Target the enemy, launch. The so-called proton collision cannon operates on principles similar to that of an atomic bomb, utilizing energy to bombard atomic nuclei, causing them to split and release immense energy. However, in this timeline, the higher-ups of the Soviet forces had intentionally erased Dr. Einstein, resulting in nuclear weapons being excluded from this timeline. Instead, the Allied forces had unlocked another type of superweapon through other branches of their technology tree, which utilized the power of protons to bombard atomic nuclei, releasing energy comparable to that of an atomic bomb. Due to the charged nature of protons, they experience loss when interacting with other materials, making this weapon free of radiation during attacks. It could be said to be a clean and hygienic weapon, as promoted by the Allied forces. In the midst of Subai's surroundings, the proton collision cannon roared to life. In an instant, a brilliant yellow orb of light shot forth, tracing a magnificent parabolic arc across the sky, striking at the swarming army of parasites. With each orb that made contact, it was like a star falling, erupting in dazzling golden light. Accompanied by rippling waves of expansion, it was breathtakingly beautiful, yet harbored the power to annihilate everything. Beneath that brilliance, the swarm of parasites seemed to face a judgment day, ruthlessly consumed, with each shot precisely ending the existence of hundreds of thousands of lives. The continuous barrage of 5 shots not only tore apart the enemy's front and rear defenses, but also transformed the sky into a golden ocean. 3 beams of light pierced deep into the enemy ranks like arrows from a god of war, unstoppable. The final 2 shots, akin to divine punishment, locked directly onto the fearsome Scissorhand Blood Beast. Its massive body trembled in the golden light. Impossible. How can humans possess such immense power? It had considered the opponent's strength. The ability to make a piece of land float in the air indicated considerable hidden power. However, the Scissorhand Blood Beast could also lift such a massive landmass. Moreover, with its own strength, it had nearly succeeded in infiltrating the human world before. How could it possibly lose to this human before it? There was no time to ponder further as it was completely engulfed in the brilliance and roar, smoke and dust rising, obscuring the sky, leaving its fate a mystery. Subai furrowed his brow. He hadn't received a kill notification. Could it be that the opponent hadn't died? That shouldn't be the case. Currently, his super weapon has fully harnessed the power of the wave engine. It can be said that its power has increased tenfold. What could possibly withstand such force? Subai was somewhat skeptical until the dust cleared. A massive brown mountain appeared before him, and only then did he realize what had happened. The giant mountain was not a real mountain, but a colossal pupa. An insect's pupa? Chapter 248, Evolve. Armored pupa. It turned out that when the proton collider made contact with the scissor-handed blood beast, the opponent had already realized that there was no way to escape this calamity. They decisively hardened their body and underwent a physiological transformation, becoming a gigantic insect pupa. Apocalypse tank, go? Subai waved his hand to launch the second attack. The steel torrent moved like a long snake, with thousands of cannons firing simultaneously. The massive pupa was once again engulfed in explosions. The steel beast of the apocalypse tank roared as it unleashed a barrage, with artillery raining down like a storm on the giant pupa. Each explosion shook the air, demonstrating unparalleled firepower. However, the outer shell of the pupa was exceptionally tough. Although the cannonballs of the apocalypse tank were fierce, they only sparked layers of fire and dust on the surface, failing to penetrate its defenses, leaving behind charred marks. Useless. Under my armored shell, any attack is ineffective. I advise you to save your energy and surrender. You cannot win. Subai saw his attacks easily neutralized, and the scissor-handed blood beast began to taunt him. Hearing this, Subai merely nodded in agreement. It did seem like he was invincible, but he wanted to try again. Subai waved his hand, preparing to use the next super weapon. The scissor-handed blood beast inside the pupa was alarmed. Having just endured 2 rounds of Subai's attacks, the shell was already under immense strain and could not withstand another round. It had only been posturing, trying to scare Subai off, but now the opponent was undeterred. If another round hit, it would surely be fatal. It seemed he couldn't wait any longer. Just as Subai decided whether to use the vacuum implosion bomb or the super energy annihilation wave, a massive pupa in the distance suddenly split open with a menacing crack, exuding an ominous aura. As the crack widened, a cold and evil golden light burst forth, heralding the arrival of disaster. With a thunderous roar, the pupa completely shattered, revealing a gigantic golden butterfly, not the beauty of life, but the wings of a nightmare, before everyone's eyes. Its wings spread wide, darkening the sky, stretching for dozens of kilometers. Every feather glimmers with a metallic, cold sheen, exuding an endless aura of threat and death. The golden butterfly circles in the air, each flap of its wings accompanied by a sharp sound that seems capable of tearing through the atmosphere. Wherever it passes, the vegetation withers, and life is extinguished. This is the power of the higher beings of the insect race. Evolution. I now possess 10 times the strength I had before. No matter how powerful you are, you cannot match me. The Scissorhand Blood Beast now radiates a power that is indeed much greater than before. However, in the face of Subai, it still falls short. Previously, he had to consider deploying super weapons. Now, although his strength has increased, his defenses have decreased. No matter how strong he is, can he surpass all the air forces at my command? Moreover, the Air Force has undergone several rounds of enhancements and is now significantly stronger than when they first entered the realm. It can be said that their strength has increased by at least 40. Coupled with my vast aerial fortress, does the opponent really think they can challenge me directly? While Subai was contemplating which units to deploy to eliminate the enemy, Han Li and her troops pursued from behind. She was stunned to see the Scissorhand Blood Beast undergo a second evolution. Previously, with Subai's heroes and various high-tech units, they could only barely push the enemy back, sealing the breach in the Great Wall of all realms. But now, with this surge in power, she wondered if Zhengya from the Central Continent team could handle it. All aerial units, support Subai? The frozen helicopters flew forward again, accompanied by Han Li's own troops. They aimed to perform another trick, reducing the enemy's size and delivering a beating. Unfortunately, the current Scissorhand Blood Beast was no longer the young creature it once was. Its massive wings were laden with deadly poison. With a powerful sweep, countless tiny poisonous particles spread like a black rain across the sky. Following this, several colossal tornadoes formed from the intertwining poison and fierce winds, roaring with the fury of nature itself. Under this unprecedented storm, Han Li's frozen helicopters became like disoriented birds, losing control in an instant. They collided in midair, producing a series of piercing metallic tearing sounds. This was followed by a cacophony of deafening explosions, as flames and black smoke intertwined, painting the sky in apocalyptic hues. The lighter and supposedly more agile air units were utterly defenseless against the razor-sharp tornadoes. The wind blades sliced through everything in their path with precision and cruelty, dismantling them piece by piece, transforming them into fragments and dust, ultimately disappearing into the vortex of the storm. In just 3 minutes, Han Li's aerial forces had been completely annihilated. She was on the verge of tears. This was just too powerful. She couldn't tell if Subai was truly her match. If not, then the opponent's agile posture in the air makes it impossible to escape. Its wings continue to flap. This time, it charged towards the floating island of Subai. Countless toxic powders left a deadly area behind it. Soon, the scissor-handed blood beast transformed into a butterfly and hovered in the air. Suddenly, it made a sharp turn, facing Subai's floating island, and drew the falling toxic powder towards itself. In an instant, the entire island was engulfed in deadly poison. Fortunately, Subai was in a secret space within the island. Some infantry units and creatures on the island instantly inhaled the poison, causing their bodies to begin rotting away, eventually turning into pools of green liquid. Subai opened his mouth in surprise. The opponent's wings actually carried radioactive dust. The scissor-handed blood beast was overjoyed. Although it had evolved to the second stage at the cost of half its lifespan, now it was time for the opponent to meet their end. Human, this time I want to see if your shell is hard enough to withstand my next attack. The two sides were separated by a bulletproof window made of special materials. Unexpectedly, Subai smiled and said, "Great, it's radiation, then I won't hold back." Han Li had already knelt on the ground. Did this mean she would become a widow, living in mourning for the days to come? This thought made her feel a sense of tragic resignation. However, just as this thought crossed her mind, a new change occurred within the floating island. A number of radiation engineers holding small reactors emerged from several concealed entrances, aiming at the opponent's body. They released beams of green radiation, just as the scissor-handed blood beast was about to smash Subai's floating island with its forelimbs. It suddenly stopped and snorted coldly. So there are things that are not afraid of my poison. Quite impressive. Chapter 249, Itchy Scratchy. However, your attacks are of no consequence to me. Subai observed coldly as the radiation beams from the engineers touched the monster's body, only to disappear without a trace, not causing the slightest ripple. The opponent not only possessed radiation abilities, but also seemed to have a natural immunity to such energy, astonishing everyone. Humph. An ant trying to shake a tree. The scissor-handed blood beast let out a deafening roar. Its massive forelimbs swung down like a collapsing mountain, instantly crushing Su Bai's carefully deployed group of radiation engineers into a bloody mess. 500 elite units were obliterated in an instant, leaving no trace of injury on the beast. Su Bai's brows furrowed tightly. He knew very well that sending more radiation engineers would be akin to moths flying into a flame. It would only delay the inevitable destruction for a moment. This evolved, scissor-handed blood beast was a top-tier existence among the insectoids of all realms. Its strength has far surpassed that of the past Blade Queen, enough to rank among the powerful foes encountered by Su Bai, second only to the legendary deity Overlord. As for the one ranked first, Zhao Haoyan, he has been eliminated and is no longer a consideration. However, Su Bai felt no fear in his heart. The vast army database of the Red Alert system was his most solid backing. His thoughts flickered like lightning as he quickly locked onto an unprecedented tactic, utilizing the terrifying robots from Red Alert 3 for an aerial assault. Compared to the second generation of terrifying robots, the third generation had added a jumping feature, effectively solving the distance issue between both sides. With a command from Su Bai, thousands of terrifying robots surged forth like a black tide. They were light and swift, like phantoms in the night sky. Taking advantage of the scissor-hand blood beast's focus on destroying the floating island's defenses, they silently leaped onto the massive creature. Because they were so light, almost like fleas, the scissor-hand blood beast remained unaware, still reveling in the thrill of attacking Su Bai. Suddenly, the blood beast flapped its wings again. A fierce wind arose, and a toxic tornado rampaged, not only engulfing the floating island, but also plunging the entire battlefield into chaos. The island spun uncontrollably under the tornado's fury, and the defensive facilities lost their aim, with artillery fire raining down but failing to hit the target. Ha ha ha, playing with my prey is my greatest pleasure. Bow before me in my storm, you ants of humanity. The scissor-hand blood beast was elated, believing that Su Bai's floating island could not escape its grasp. However, it decided to wait a moment longer to thoroughly toy with its prey. Such terrifying power made Hanli bite her lip. Just moments ago, Su Bai had suddenly sent troops to launch an offensive, momentarily giving her renewed hope. But that flicker of hope was extinguished by the enemy's overwhelming storm. Yet, in the next moment, the massive scissor-hand blood beast began to twitch. It's dead. It kept rubbing its body with its forelimbs. This action left Hanli utterly bewildered. What is happening? Is the scissor-hand blood beast acting strangely? As the creature continued to itch, the storm it created dissipated, and the floating island returned to normal. 3 powerful energy cannons instantly struck its wings. Standing atop the bridge of his ship, Su Bai was tall and upright, a faint smile playing on his lips as he calmly remarked, "Scratching an itch is merely a temporary measure, not a lasting strategy." Upon hearing this, the scissor-hand blood beast in the sky trembled, filled with suspicion, pondering, "This human actually knows about my unbearable itch. Could it be that he is the mastermind behind this?" Enraged, he thought, seeking death. Once again, 2 wings flapped, creating 2 more purple toxic mist tornadoes that swept toward him. How dare they secretly plot against him? He needed to deal with the humans first before scratching the itch. Unfortunately, his body was getting itchier by the moment. The storm did not reach Su Bai's side. As his concentration wavered, gradually calming down, this pervasive itchiness felt like having hives, spreading in patches, and the more he scratched, the itchier it became, causing his entire body to swell and turn red. Su Bai returned to his throne, crossed his legs, and enjoyed watching the opponent's awkwardness in the air. Not only that, but the display screen ahead showed perspectives from thousands of terrifying robots. From the robots' viewpoints, the opponent's body was covered in dense fur, hiding large deep holes, which were actually the opponent's pores. These bristles were not only hard but also capable of blocking artillery fire, as if an extra layer of armor had been added. However, for the terrifying robots, the pores below were the perfect entry point. One by one, the small robots burrowed inside, moving through the long, dark pores into the opponent's dermis. As long as these small robots exerted force to attack the dermis, the opponent would suddenly jerk in response, feeling the itch. At this moment, although the scissor-hand blood beast in the sky was of the insect race, its intelligence was no less than that of humans. It deciphered the implications of Su Bai's earlier words. The itchiness was definitely his doing. Could it be that the opponent had secretly sent troops to climb onto its body, attacking continuously to cause the itch? Realizing this, the scissor-hand blood beast endured the itch and suddenly let out a cold laugh. Your calculations are on point. Unfortunately, I am smarter than you. With a thunderous roar, its wings surged over 1,000 meters. The scissor-hand blood beast suddenly dove down, targeting a body of water. Once I hit the water, I'll drown all the fleas you've sent out. Then I will tear you to pieces. After saying this, the blood beast flapped its wings and took off, then sharply dove straight into the water. Waves surged, splashes flew, as it vowed to catch all those fleas in one fell swoop before seeking revenge on Subai. Subai was also taken aback. This creature's intelligence was indeed impressive, as it could deduce that he was behind the plot. He couldn't help but feel a twinge of relief. Thankful that he had dispatched third-generation terrifying robots instead of the second-generation ones, which were more limited. The third-generation robots could traverse on water and were fully waterproof. Just like the water strider that walks on water using surface tension, the scissor-handed blood beast remains submerged, showing no intention of coming out. It can hold its breath underwater for over 20 minutes, even up to half an hour. It refuses to believe that these fleas won't die. Time passes second by second. It has already been 10 minutes, and the itchiness on its body persists, intensifying. What is going on? Why is the body still so itchy? For a moment, it finds itself in confusion. Moreover, the itchiness has a distinct rhythm, seemingly like a Morse code. As a superior being of the insect tribe, with exceptional intelligence, it quickly translates the varying lengths of the coded message. Chapter 250. The mini-submarine of the Rising Sun Empire randomly explodes. Short long. The translated code reads, itchy, itchy, itchy. Just use 99999 anti-itch cream. Damn it. Those despicable humans, not only are they mocking me, but they are also advertising. Hold on. I refuse to believe that those parasites on me won't drown. On the floating island, Subai watches this scene, feeling somewhat troubled. The enemy is hiding in the water, refusing to come out. Regular weapons are truly ineffective against it. In that case, let's apply some pressure on the opponent. Descend. The floating island slowly descends near the shore, and thousands of magnetic storm speedboats come down from above. The magnetic storm speedboat, an amphibious unit from the game, can crawl on land with 6 legs like a spider. Once in the water, the mechanical legs retract, transforming it into a genuine magnetic storm speedboat. Its actual name is Electric Manta Ray, which can be considered the magnetic energy tank of the naval forces. Additionally, this speedboat has another skill, electromagnetic diffusion, releasing large-scale electrical energy in the surrounding waters, causing area damage to enemies within range. Using it against the scissor-handed blood beast should be a good choice. Meanwhile, in the Iron Blood Magic Palace, the unknown blood creatures are producing more and more soldier puppets. A small team of over 100 members has lost more than 20. Captain, what should we do? Think of something quickly. At this rate, we will be completely wiped out. Zhengya's forehead is dripping with sweat. All troops are huddled together, forming a defensive formation to ensure everyone's safety. Now, with a million-strong army already depleted, only 500,000 remain. The previous ferocity is no longer present. On the battlefield, all troops begin to continue consolidating, vying to be the first. Many units experience conflicts due to delayed orders, resulting in further chaos. Even fighting amongst themselves, resulting in thousands of casualties. After more than an hour of turmoil, they finally formed a defensive formation. Various units firmly protected their team members in the center. Zhengya had already sensed that the time was ripe. Exterminate the Immortals' Sword Formation. Form the array. The Exterminate the Immortals' Sword Formation was an extraordinary formation cultivated by Zhengya, honed over countless years by cultivators. Its power was enough to withstand the invasions of water and fire, and the wrath of heavenly thunder, serving as the ultimate defense for high-level cultivators against heavenly tribulations. Today, it reappeared in this desolate land, signaling that the situation had reached a critical point. With Zhengya's command, tens of thousands of cultivators quickly positioned themselves in all directions, east, south, west, and north, forming a complex array. The swords behind them seemed to sense their master's will, suddenly soaring into the sky, transforming into a rain of swords, each emitting a chilling light. Following a predetermined path, they accurately wove a cage of swords, the Exterminate the Immortals' Sword Formation. At that moment, the dark underground palace shimmered with silver light, the sword light weaving densely, sealing off the terror and despair within the Iron Blood Demon Palace in this invincible sword formation. As expected, after activating the Exterminate the Immortals' Sword Formation, the tide-like assault of blood creatures was forced back by this overwhelming aura. Of course, some dared to charge at the sword formation, but they were all killed by the invisible sword energy. On the battlefield, tens of thousands of charging enemies were instantly turned into a pool of blood. Wow, Captain Zhengya, if you had this move, why didn't you use it earlier? Yeah, you let over 20 of our brothers die. Are you trying to weaken the strength of our representatives from other regions, so that your Central Continent team can become the nominal leader? Exactly, that's just too underhanded. In response to everyone's accusations, Zhengya remained silent, as he needed to focus all his energy on controlling the Exterminate the Immortals' Sword Formation. The support from the Central Continent team, Zhan Lan, loudly replied, "Without Zhengya, you would have died long ago. How could the Exterminate the Immortals' Sword Formation cover 1 million troops? Protecting 500,000 is already pushing it." The others scoffed. If you don't have the capability, why take on the task? We ended up in this dangerous place because of Zheng Ye's mistake. Yeah, if we hadn't come here, we could have been leisurely enjoying barbecues by the world barrier. I think their strength is just average. They're just putting on airs. I feel like we're better off than the Demon Team Captain Su, by who saved us. Other members of the Central Continent team were also filled with righteous indignation. Now you're blaming our captain. Who was it that thought the points were accumulating too slowly by the wall? Wasn't it all of you complaining? Otherwise, the captain wouldn't have brought you here to farm points. The atmosphere between both sides was tense, with Zheng gritting his teeth and sweating profusely. Everyone, we must unite and avoid infighting, he urged. However, Subai was unclear about the matters within the Iron Blood Demon Palace. The current situation, however, made him want to personally take action and cast a few lures. The magnetic speedboats were continuously releasing electric currents on the water's surface, causing strange-looking large fish to surface, each at least the size of a person and weighing around 500 pounds. He was surprised by the good fishing conditions here, but lamented that if it weren't for the ongoing conflict, he wouldn't have to resort to electro-fishing like an electrician. Unexpectedly, the Scissorhand blood beast did not emerge due to the electric currents. Instead, a giant sea monster, towering like a mountain, surfaced first. The massive waves it generated capsized several magnetic speedboats, startling Subai. It was only natural, he thought, since they were in a realm of countless worlds. The presence of some oceanic species was to be expected. Prepare the navy of the Rising Sun Empire. We must subdue this sea monster first. Earlier, Subai had carelessly selected many submarines from the Rising Sun Empire. These submarines had weak attack power, primarily relying on self-destructing torpedoes. Now, with so many eager soldiers at his disposal, it was their moment to prove their loyalty. With a wave of his hand, over 1,000 mini-submarines entered the vast waters. The Great Subai, the enemy is now within our attack range. We can launch small torpedoes to engage, someone reported. Subai quickly waved his hand and shook his head, saying innocently, no, that's too troublesome. Just charge straight in and self-destruct. There was a brief hesitation from the other side. Great Commander, such actions will increase our losses. That's nothing. I'm not afraid of losses. The soldiers of the Empire are known for their loyalty, right? Don't forget your Bushido spirit. During the last World War, you had many submarines packed with explosives specifically to deal with enemy torpedoes. That's your tradition. We can't let it fade away. Subai spoke with shameless audacity, delivering a seemingly profound argument. In response, the other side resolutely declared, we will be loyal to you. Following that, the communication was cut off. On the battlefield, all the mini-submarines began charging towards the giant monster, and as they surged forward, the commander in charge of the submarine shouted loudly, fire all mini-torpedoes at the enemy with maximum firepower. Go! A gigantic sea creature extended countless tentacles, sweeping across the battlefield and capturing hundreds of mini-submarines, subsequently crushing them. The unexpected explosive power of these small devices took the creature by surprise. In the deafening chaos of shouts and roars, 700 to 800 mini-submarines surged forward like a brave swarm, recklessly charging at the massive beast. They traced determined and resolute paths across the surface of the sea, each carrying the frenzied determination of their navy. Though small, these mini-submarines were equipped with many high-explosive bombs. This group of crazed individuals resolutely pressed the detonation buttons. In that moment, there was no fear in their eyes, only a desire for victory and loyalty to their commander. With the first explosion's roar, dazzling light erupted on the surface of the water. This was followed by a series of explosions, like continuous thunder, shaking the entire area. The massive body of the sea creature trembled violently under the shockwaves, its skin torn apart, blood and flesh flying everywhere, riddled with wounds. Each explosion struck the creature's flesh mercilessly. The seawater boiled from the explosions. Huge bubbles rose continuously, only to be instantly shattered into countless tiny droplets, refracting colorful light under the sun. The creature struggled in pain, letting out deafening roars. The commander smiled. Every time the enemy suffered losses, though it cost his own resources, he felt a surge of satisfaction. Before he could savor the moment, the creature surprisingly showed no signs of dying. It was said that the tentacles of an octopus contained a brain, making it one of the most intelligent creatures. With the countless tentacles of this massive beast, it surely had even more brains. As the saying goes, a centipede, even when dead, does not stiffen. Despite being heavily injured, it was not completely dead and attempted to dive deeper to escape. I've lost over 1,000 good brothers. I won't let you escape so easily, the commander ordered. Heavy fire from the cruiser. He then took out the next powerful asset from his navy, the cruiser, a key player in naval warfare. This cruiser was designed for combat at sea, emphasizing speed and firepower, and was equipped with various advanced weapon systems, the most notable being its powerful torpedoes. These torpedoes not only possess tremendous explosive power, but also have high precision, allowing them to effectively target enemy vessels. For those hidden beneath the waves, these torpedoes are undoubtedly a nightmare. Additionally, the bow of the cruiser is equipped with unique S-shaped torpedo launchers that can simultaneously fire multiple special torpedoes, creating a fan-shaped attack range. This special launching method enables the cruiser to quickly and efficiently destroy enemy fleets. It's akin to a character in a game unleashing a fan-shaped attack, inflicting significant damage on adversaries. Moreover, the cruiser is outfitted with the latest type of nano-impact-resistant armor. This armor utilizes advanced nanotechnology to greatly enhance the ship's defense, effectively resisting attacks from enemy fire. Whether from shells or missiles, penetrating this impenetrable armor is a difficult task. All cruisers are arranged in a